trip that I'm leaving for tonight. So once the conference is done, I'll be gone for a week.
What are you going to try to ventilate?
I have my buck tag and my cow elk tag.
And where are you going?
That's classified, sir.
You know I don't care.
Yeah, but I don't know who's listening.
I'm not following.
I don't know who's listening. I don't give up my hunting spots.
Could be Kyle.
Maybe some of us own hunting spots in the place you're going.
Well, I will then say something to the positive, Amy, that I'm going to be in Area 7. That's correct.
I just happen to own 40 acres there with private access to the forest.
Amy, you
So
just
if
became
you
my.
get
Did we just become best friends?
stuck in that area, you could leave me a message and I could check it over the weekend because I'm planning on going.
I will absolutely do that. And I'll get your cell phone number from you before we're done today so that I can check in with you because I'll be
There you go.
camping near Friend Park.
There you go.
So.
All righty. Have a good time up there.
It's beautiful. I just wish I had a bull tag up there.
Yeah, me too. But
You ever get a landowner tag for that place?
you have to have 200 acres. So.
Oh, okay. Can't
That's
just
a
like
little
get
rough.
a tiny little thing. So basically, you only get a landowner tag if you're wagon hound.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about mine is this is that spot that butts up right to wagon hounds and they can't keep me off of it.
That's awesome.
Sounds to me like Amy should be charging like $200 trespass fee.
It's like $12,000 to go on wagon hounds.
Yeah, to go on wagon hound, but on her 40 acres.
Yeah, she can charge whatever she'd like.
I can, yes, for my hard-sided tent.
Right. The hard part is 40 acres. You got to get lucky and have the elk on her place. That's not a lot.
I do. But like I said, I have access to that national park forest behind it.
That's all locked in because wagon hound locked it in.
But I have my property butts to it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I have walk on. Yep. But it's up by, where am I? By the La Perelle workstation.
Okay.
About a half a mile past that.
Okay. Well,
you're
gonna get a phone call from me today.
If you can't find yourself somewhere, yeah.
Well, I've got spots. It's
right.
finding,
and then if they're not working out, yeah.
Yeah, it's finding cows. That's the hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they run to private, where there's very little pressure, and the bulls push them there because the bulls can do that. I mean, I've got a few spots where I know I'll find a bull. I just don't have a bull tag for that area.
Right.
So
yeah.
I called in a huge 370-inch bull 2 years ago, and I was trying to get a cow, and I couldn't shoot him.
That sounds like bull to me.
He came into 18 yards. I have video of it. All right, we are at 8:05. I know that other folks will jump in and are in rooms together. So Community Action, Natrona County, we're all ready to go. So welcome again to Friday morning's CSNOW conference. We are going to get right down to it. Just a couple of quick announcements before we jump in. We will be doing an evaluation. So at the end of the day, you will receive via email through the CSNOW email a link to a SurveyMonkey for our conference evaluation. I would really love all the feedback you can give me, as brutally honest as you can be. That would be really, really helpful for us, especially next year. Who knows how often Zoom conferences are going to be the thing. The other thing is that at the end of our day, at the end of our second session at 3 p.m., we are going to have our state association annual meeting, and I would really appreciate every one of you being present and be a part of that. We have a lot of exciting things to share with you about the next year coming up. CSNOW's receiving a couple of different allotments of CARES Act money that will be available to community action agencies here in Wyoming, and I want to make sure you guys know about that program and what we're going to be able to offer for you. And I also want to lay out for you our plans, CSNOW's plans this year. One of the questions that myself and other board members have received from our members is, what is it that we get from being a part of CSNOW? Well, I want to answer that question and make sure that we're providing for you excellent value going forward as members of CSNOW. And so that's all going to be part of that, as well as voting on some board member additions. So please be there for that. And without further ado, the beautiful and talented Melissa Martin.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. I heard the rest of your day went well yesterday, so so that is good. And yeah, evaluations are great. I'm sure Eric will share feedback you have for the 2 sessions I am doing as well. Learning doesn't ever stop, it keeps going. So any suggestions, tweaks, what went well, what would you like to see, then let me know as well, because I'm always learning and growing and adapting and shifting, and like we do. So you know that we are going to be talking about the Bridges Out of Poverty curriculum today. You received the PDF that you can have access, or you have access to, but I am not going to, we aren't going to do page 1, do this, page 1, work through this. It's not how I facilitate, and I let you know that yesterday. It is very much a discussion base. This is a great resource. Later you will be broke up into breakout rooms, so that will be good. Somebody in your breakout room needs to have access to it. There's a couple discussion points in there that we will go through, but really it is a resource for you to use later. At the end, right before lunch when we break, then I will also share my contact information. So if you have questions, or you're like me and later you're like, oh, hey, what about, as you're laying in bed or thinking about things, hold on to my contact information, because I'm happy to reach back out and help you guys succeed wherever you need to succeed. And there's a lot in here. I mentioned this yesterday, but the PowerPoint slide deck, I did send it to Bridget, and they will make that available to you. In the notes section of the PowerPoint slides is a whole bunch more information. This is a 2-day, all-day training. We are going to do the highlight in 4 hours. So that being said, I'm not going to get through everything in your PDF, in the textbook version, or in the workbook version. There's a lot that we can uncover, and really this is just a starting point. It's really up to you, and what does this look like for yourself and your agency to be able to apply it later. And if you have questions and need support, feel free to reach back out to me, and then we can work through that. Other thing I said yesterday was that I had wanted you to fill out the 3 worksheets that you were emailed. So if you want to go find those, we're going to circle back around to those in just a minute. But let me give you just some overview. Give me a reaction or actual thumbs up, so you can use a reaction button, or if I can see your screen, use an actual thumbs up. If you have been through any of the Bridges Out of Poverty or Getting Ahead curriculum in the past. Okay, couple of you, nice, good. And I appreciate you guys who have done that and then coming back again. I have the luxury of being in and out of this material all the time, and every time I'm like, oh, I need to be better at that. Oh, I need to remember that. Oh, I should go back and think about this. So it isn't a one and done. It's a big, guess what? Poverty is a big, complicated, gnarly issue. Who knew? And so it's good to go back and hit it again and regroup and have those conversations. Our world changes. Sometimes in like 6 months, it flips it on its head with a pandemic. And sometimes we change and we grow. Most times we do. And we grow. And so we're at a different place now than we were before. So I invite you to keep talking to each other, keep going back to the material. Change is hard. Even when you want it, change is hard. And so that reinforcement is very important. Bridget has set up some breakout rooms that we're going to talk through. We strategically put you in regions or areas so that you can talk to people you might network with most frequently. Hold on to those names and those people. You guys already know who each other are. But hold on to that, because that's a good way to go back and say, how can we support and engage one another? It used to be, I've seen a shift in nonprofits and in agencies where it used to be, this is my money, I'm going to do my things. You can't look at me, you can't work. But now grants are being written toward collaboration. Like you do this well, they do that well. How can you partner and network? So even our workplace format is shifting to nobody does it alone. And so it's very intentional that we get you to talk and to work with one another as we go through this curriculum. Okay, all of that housekeeping stuff aside. Oh, one more thing. We are going to take a break. 4 hours is a long time to sit and look at a Zoom screen. So we are going to take a break about midway through. But of course, if coffee has hit and you need to get up and stretch and take care of yourself, please do. You're adults. Manage yourselves. It's fine. But I just wanted to let you know, because while I can like be a wind-up toy and go for 4 hours, that's not helpful for anybody. So we will breathe and take a break. All right, so I'm going to give you just a couple things to think about for Bridges. It is a curriculum that was developed out of Getting Ahead by Dr. Ruby Payne. And she started the work and then she went, oh, this is bigger. We need to dive into this more. So you will see that she's brought in other people and lots of research to be able to back up and support how do we help people bridge out of poverty. Today we're going to talk about individual, institution, community, and policy lenses. However, in this short period of time of 4 hours, I'm probably going to hit, most of you probably work with either individuals or on an institutional level. You have some dabbling in the community and decision makers as far as what goes on in the community. Some of you have influence into policies that are going on a local and a state level. But I find that when I do this work, most of the people fall on the individual and institutional level. So that's where we're going to spend most of our time. And then the bottom one is the why. Like, yeah, that's good, but why are we doing this and how are we going to do this? So I'm going to keep layering in what are the tools you guys are going to need in order to work through this. Again, I love theory and I can play in theory all day, but if we don't do anything with the theory, then we've just had a fun 4 hours of making our brains hurt. The model for Bridges is as such. You will see Getting Ahead is down here. And you will see the individual level, the institutional level, the community level, and then policies bridge over top. Again, it's a complicated issue. So how are we going to help people get ahead, stay ahead, and then give back when they are sustainable? How are we going to help them move forward? I like this model better because it kind of fits my personality, my mentality better. But yeah, there are these 4 lenses of which to look at this curriculum. I recommend, I didn't have it. So if you are interested, this is their textbook version. And this has a lot more of the information, including in the back, it has how to apply and to work within your institution going forward. So if you're interested, you can go to their website and find this, or wherever you look for your books. It's pretty popular. Okay. You were asked before you came today to go through those 3 worksheets on could you survive? So Bridget is going to put you into breakout rooms. I want you to compare, share what you're comfortable sharing, but I want you to compare, could you survive in poverty? Any questions you have, like, I don't even know what this one means, and talk through that, and then come back. You are going to share back as a group, so come up with what you want to share back, what you found interesting, because I will call you out and have you talk today. Okay, so Bridget's going to put you into groups.
Okay.
Talk to yourselves.
So you should receive an invitation soon that says accept invitation to the breakout room. That will move you into the separate room. We'll go ahead and pull everybody back after 10 minutes, you think?
Let's do a little under.
So maybe 8 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Sounds great. There are some people on the call who I'm not sure which group you belong to, so please be patient with us. After everybody's been deployed to a breakout room, and if you're still here, I'll get in touch with you and we'll figure out which room you go into. So I'll go ahead and open the rooms. Okay. So let's see. We have B. Eastman. Can you unmute yourself and tell me which county you're in?
I'm in Uinta.
Uinta. Okay.
Mhm.
So I don't think we have anyone in a Uinta yet. Oh, yes, we do. Okay,
Yeah.
so I need to figure out how to move you into there. Okay. I'm not sure if I can change the breakout rooms now that I've deployed them.
Is there a Uinta room?
There is a Uinta room, but it's not giving me the option to move her into it. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I can do that. Never mind. So I'll go ahead and send you to the Uinta room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have Community Action Partnership. Can you guys
Casper.
unmute? Casper? Okay, perfect. So that is, which county is that?
Natrona.
Natrona.
Natrona. Okay.
And they could probably, do you have another Natrona room? How many are in that one?
I have 2 rooms and I don't have anybody assigned to either one. So I'll just
Morning,
go ahead and move
Marilyn.
them into
Well,
one.
they go
Natrona
off to
one.
Natrona then.
Oh, she's not in there. I don't see her now.
Not yet, not yet.
Lily, how are the babies?
Oh, they're sick.
Oh, no.
Been up with sick babies all night.
Oh, it's a blessing in disguise, right?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay. Let's see, the one name I Green Enough. I think I'm saying that correctly. Can you unmute and tell me which county you're from, please?
I'm from Johnson County.
Johnson. Okay, thank you. And it doesn't look like we have anybody else from Johnson County today. Trying to think what the next comparable county would be. How about if I put you in with the Fremont group for right now?
That's fine. Just put me in anywhere. I'm kind of multitasking here in the office, so
Okay,
I'm kind of in and out.
cool. Thank you. Debbie, which county are you from?
Uinta.
Uinta. Okay. Okay, there you go. And Holly, which county are you from? Okay, I think she's on the phone, so we might not be able to do breakout rooms. Don, can you unmute and tell me which county you're from, please?
I am from Fremont County.
Fremont. Okay, excellent.
And Holly, if you're on the phone, you can do *6 to unmute.
Okay, actually, I want to move you in Fremont too. Okay, there you
And
go, Don.
Eric's going off to admin, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yes.
jump into a different room. I'm gonna jump. Are you able to put us all in the same room there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
I just don't want to make things more complicated than they needed to be.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and close the breakout rooms at 8:26. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Yeah, if you could leave mine going a little bit longer than that,
Okay. I
I
think
don't know that
if you
I
can.
don't know if we can close it at a different time. Do
but
you want me to?
Okay.
if we're going to do other breakout rooms and you're going to be the same breakout room all day, all
Okay.
morning,
Well, then
so
I can
whatever you
probably
don't
handle
finish,
that stuff then. Okay.
just table to the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
And this
perfect.
is a shorter one. The other one's going to be, what did I say, Bridget? That one's going to be like 10 to 15 minutes. I got to print that.
That's about the time I need to. Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Dana is Fremont County.
Okay. Thank you.
I
I guess my board members are in other groups, Bridget.
Yes, Kyle and Jim are in the admin group right now, the breakout room.
I didn't get a link to go to a,
Oh, I'm sorry. Assigned to, okay. Yeah, you should be assigned to the admin group
all right,
now.
there we
Bridget, can you tell me which counties we have?
Okay, we have one group for Fremont with 3 people.
Okay.
We have one group for Laramie Platte with 2 people.
Okay.
We have one group for Natrona with Community Action Partnership, which is
And there
multiple
look like
people.
5 or 6 people around the table.
Yeah, I think so. We have one group for Sweetwater and Uinta,
Nice.
2 people.
Okay.
We have a separate group for Uinta with 4 people.
Okay.
We could probably combine those, honestly. And let me know if I'm going too fast.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. We have one group for Teton. We currently have 1 person in there, but I think there are 2 other people from Teton coming today.
Okay, good. Good, good, good.
Let me just make sure that's all of them. Oh, we have 1 person in, oh darn, shoot. We have 1 person in a Converse Goshen group. They're in by themselves. I'm gonna go ahead and move them into Fremont.
Sure.
Okay.
Converse
Fremont.
Goshen, that's close to, that's Douglas, that area.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, put them in Fremont.
And I think after we close the rooms, I think
Then they'll stick. Yes.
I think so. As
Yeah.
I started the meeting, I realized that the pre-assigned rooms weren't there. So as you were talking, I was recreating all the rooms.
Oh, nice. Good. Yes, on the fly.
So hopefully that should work.
Yeah.
Hi, Dana. If you can unmute or type in the chat box, just let me know which county you're from, and I can set you in the right breakout room.
Morning, Dana. I don't know if you had heard Bridget earlier. I know you were still connecting to audio, but we were wanting to see what county you were in so we can match you up with other people in the surrounding area.
I'm Fremont.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank
perfect.
you.
We'll move you into the Fremont group.
Dusty is my worker, so I don't know
Okay.
if you want to put us in that same room.
Yeah, sure, that'll be perfect. You should get an invitation to join, and you'll be in the same group for
Okay,
all the
got it.
breakouts in this session.
Okay.
We won't be there long.
Thank you.
We're going to close the rooms in a minute.
Yeah. Okay, in fact, I think it's about time to close the rooms. So Dana, if you want to hold off on accepting that invitation, we're just going to go ahead and close the rooms. But we'll restart new breakouts in a little bit. Okay, so they'll have 60 seconds to come back into the main session.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So how many of these do you get to do?
This is our first one, actually.
Well, great, because you seem like you do them all the time.
Well, thank you.
So many moving parts.
It's true.
Angie, you are muted. You are talking and it's great. I want to hear what you're saying, but I can't.
Was there only supposed to be 2 of us in the
Where are you at? Are you Laramie Platte?
Uinta?
We have 2 Uinta groups.
Oh, okay.
And
Because
we
Kimberly and I
could-
were the only ones in ours.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could combine you. Would that be beneficial? Is to
Maybe,
put-
yeah.
Because there's 4 in the other group, so we can combine.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's nice though, just to chat with one other person. I have to.
Yeah, it was nice, but we weren't really clear on what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, I ran through them quick. Yeah.
Good morning, Angie.
Morning.
Good to see your beautiful face.
Yours too.
Thank you.
Are you home today?
I'm
Nice.
zooming from home.
Very
It's
nice.
awesome. I know. I was like, yeah, you know, I think I needed a little break. I'm in the middle of 3 audits right now, and I'm like, I need an office break. I needed a change of scenery this morning.
Yeah. I was on Zoom yesterday
your
from
butt into the office.
8:15 till 7:30 last night.
Oh my word, what a long day.
Yeah.
Had a similar day. Yes.
I have a little Zoom burnout.
Yeah.
And
For
I
real.
text Jim this morning, I'm like, are you coming in today? Are you going to work from home? See, if he was my hype man, and if he's like, yeah, I'm staying home, I would have felt better about my decision.
So welcome back. What I had asked you to do during the break is look at those worksheets. And so I'm going to call out the counties and your areas for your breakout rooms, and you tell me what was interesting, maybe what you have questions on or some commonalities. Basically, tell me what you were talking about in your rooms. So we'll start with Fremont County. Nose goes.
Fremont County.
That would be Amy Clark, Dana, Dawn, Dusty.
We didn't talk about anything. We didn't know what we were doing. We just sat there and we said hi to each other.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so then, and I appreciate your honesty. We're like, we don't know. So the worksheets that you were handed out, anybody from Fremont County, as you were filling them out, so even if you didn't have a chance to talk about them in your groups, then share what was interesting about those 3 worksheets. Sorry.
I think for me is that I could survive in any class. And I think that's because of working in this for so long that I can figure it out. So
thank you.
Not only from my personal experience in life, but from helping.
You know, I found it really, really interesting that when I did the worksheets last night, that I'm incredibly adept at being poor and am an expert in middle class, but I'm screwed if I ever get rich.
How many of you can relate to what Eric just said? And how many of you can relate to what Dana said too, that I may not be in poverty, but because of the people I work with and my job, then I have enough of an understanding that I could check off some of those comments or some of those statements. Yeah, good. Thank you. Laramie Platte County, what do you got?
That would be Lena and Shauna.
Hi, me and Sean were both not here yesterday, so we didn't get the worksheets, but we talked a little bit about what we found interesting within the book, just the differences. We talked mainly about the language, like your formal register and then like just the different registers. And I found that really interesting while I was reading through the book. So that's what we talked about.
That's great. And thank you, Lena, for jumping in. And I can't remember now who was with you, but nice job to still make it relevant and talk through it. Wonderful. Natrona County. Where's my community action group? Go ahead.
So we talked about kind of what Eric touched on. We had a few check marks in the poverty for the most part, and then most of us checked most of the middle class, and then I think some of us checked like 1 or 2 in the wealthy class. So it was pretty interesting. Just I think it's just like Lena said, a different language within each class.
Yep, good point. And we're going to talk about the language component later. Fascinating. And I'm a communication geek, so it's just amazing on how language shapes thought. And so we'll circle back around. Thank you, Natrona County. Sweetwater. Let's do all of the Sweetwater Uinta group together, because I'm going to lump them up as one group. So you 2 groups, jump in.
So that would be, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I'm trying to figure out Sweetwater Uinta group. Do we have anybody from Sweetwater?
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm from Sweetwater.
Okay, Kimberly. What we had in our room was just us 2 El Presidentes, myself and Kyle, and we've both done the bridges training, me at least 5 times and Kyle a couple of times. And we always like this questionnaire, just again to show the differences. We talked a little bit that one of the things that we find, if we're playing caseworker, if I have a caseworker, and invariably those of us in the middle class look at somebody who's looking for assistance and say, so what are you going to do next month? And invariably we get the answer, I'll worry about that when the time comes, which for us middle class individuals, just for lack of a better term, just pisses us off because we expect them to have an idea what they're going to do. But what Bridges shows is that they think with a different side of their brain, we believe, and that's why that that first page, looking at what poor folks, and lower income persons, how they think, and we have to develop a lot of empathy.
Excellent. Nice job, Jim and Kyle. Appreciate it. Yeah. Other Uinta group, you want to jump in?
I think we just are, we mostly stayed on the first page, chapter 3. I think it was, we can, although we may not have a personal knowledge of some of this, we can definitely relate in how it helps. Just shared some stories on how poverty has affected, us in some way. And just our clientele, and how, a financial, for example, budgeting, for example, when tax return time comes, what would what we would like them to do with their tax return, for example, let's say for a rainy day, but that mindset is instant gratification. Let's get maybe a new tattoo, buy a new television, instead of stocking up on needs. And it really is just a way of life. It is a conditioning. And it's not something that we have the ability of changing, especially in generational poverty, because it feels good to get what we want. And when you don't have it, and it's right there, you know, it makes them happy. It makes all of us happy to do that. And so it's just learning new techniques and new languages in dealing with that, and realizing just because someone isn't doing what we would do doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. And that was kind of the basis of our conversation.
Yes, well said. Nice. And it is so many things that you have layered on there. The instant gratification, the how we govern our time, the dealing with past wants. Now when I have money, I'm going to solve those rather than future, like Jim was talking about. Yes. Yeah, good stuff. Right on track. Okay, last group, Teton.
I think for the Teton group, we only had Carrie. We didn't have anybody else. Sorry about that. Are you there, Carrie?
And so what we'll do, Carrie, going forward is probably put you in with another county so that you have a chance to talk with somebody. That'd be good.
Yeah.
And I believe Carrie is multitasking. They're pretty busy up there at 122 on a lot of stuff, and so she's listening in, I'm sure.
Okay.
Cool.
For the
Thank you.
future, I'll go ahead and move Carrie into the UNTA group.
Nice. Perfect. So many good things. One of the things I like about the worksheets that you went through was that it does split up into 3 different categories. So we have our poverty, we have our middle class, and we have our wealth. But how many of you, when you were self-assessing, even when you were sharing, said, well, I marked a few here and a lot here and a couple here. Yeah, I like nice organized delineations. Guess what? We are social scientists. We deal with people. People are mushy. So it isn't like, oh, here versus here versus here. It is a blended style, which means it's going to make your work more creative to be able to say, okay, I know that you are dealing with like this, but there's more to you than just one category. So throughout the rest of the morning, I'm going to talk as if there's 3 categories, but I want you to remember that people are mushy. You yourself are mushy, so are the people that are that you're working with and engaging with. And so get to know them, figure out where they're at. Okay, I'm going to go to couple things before we're going to break you out again. I just want to give you some good foundation from the Bridges Out of Poverty curriculum. So one of the workshops I do is for the health community, and we talk about the fact that the socioeconomic status gradient says the richer you are, the healthier you are. Do you agree? Okay, Amy's going no. Debbie's saying no. It is true. When your appendix is going to go, it doesn't care how much is in your bank account. When your appendix is going to go, it's going to go. However, think about how living conditions influence health. And if you are not eating healthy, it is much cheaper for me to run through the dollar menu at McDonald's and feed my family than it is for me to go to the Saturday market and buy food to prepare to feed for my family. So it's not 100%, but this is true. The poorer you are, the sicker you are. And it's not only tied to eating habits. Living in poverty is a risk factor for stress-related illnesses. If you are always under stress, then yes, that's going to manifest itself in different ways. And it's not entirely due to lack of access. And I know in Wyoming, we like to say, but it's so far. Yeah, it is, but it's not the only reason. So breathe. It is true that your appendix doesn't care how much is in your bank account. But how many times do you see people making decisions based on the resources they have, and that may not be conducive to where they're at? When you went through the worksheet, there were some comments or some statements about how people make decisions living in poverty versus middle class versus wealth. There's a similar worksheet that we use for health, and that is true. I'm going to make some decisions based on access to healthy food and the money I have to pay for food versus healthy food that will come into play. This is a slide we're going to end up with today, but I want to just put it out here now. The definition of resources is the extent to which an individual does without them. So it is more than just money. And on your worksheet, it didn't say, if you make this much money to this much money and you're below the federal poverty level, then you are poor. But next month you made $5 more. So you made it above the federal poverty level. You're not poor anymore. Yeah, no, that doesn't work like that. So somebody had mentioned earlier generational habits. Yes, and that will very much come into play. Money isn't the only resource. We're going to come back to this slide later this afternoon. Generational poverty and situational poverty are different. What are habits of behavior that are passed from generation to generation versus, and if you haven't figured it out right yet, I am Melissa, I am white middle class, if you haven't guessed. So Eric said yesterday that we're all one big catastrophe away from being homeless. So let's pretend that doesn't happen to me. But if it did, I would address that problem through my white middle class brain. What happens if, so who mainly plays the lottery? Poverty, middle class, or wealth?
Poverty.
Yes, yeah. And what happens when they win? What happens with their money?
They blow it.
Yeah, poof. And even look at the words we're using. They blow it. They waste it. They buy stupid stuff. That's very much our middle class brain coming into play. But yeah, because that is back to, and tell me your name, B. Eastman, because I can call you B. Eastman.
That's Becky.
But, okay, Becky, thank you. So we'll go back to what Becky had said as far as immediate gratification, living in the moment, yes. And where do they learn those behaviors? They've been taught through generations. Another thing I find fascinating is that it takes 3 generations to move through this. To move somebody out of generational poverty into middle class, 3 generations. So I told you I am white middle class, I am here. My grandparents, generational poverty. And I'll tell you more about that side of the family because they're a hoot. No judgment, every family has things. But my grandfather, construction worker here, grew up generational poverty, married my grandmother, who grew up middle class, but then followed grandpa into this mindset, raised 7 kids, my dad being the oldest, in generational poverty. My dad went into the military, married my mom, middle class, situational poverty. They raised my sister and I very much middle class. It took 3 generations to move the needle. Breathe, because I know that we want to do great things for the people that are in front of us. You can, but it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to give them services and say, all your problems are solved, yay. It is like moving an ocean liner. And it isn't, okay, we're going to turn the ocean liner, you're going to go that way. No, everybody's going to throw up and get sick. Seasick. It is slow course correction. And so this 3-generation rule, it helps me to be patient and persistent because you are making a difference in your counties. But sometimes it's discouraging because you don't see it overnight. Okay, a few other things, and then I'm going to put you back into your rooms. I'm going to send you to your room. Sorry, that was very mom-like of me to say, but hang in there. So knowledge is also a key form of privilege, just like social access, race, and money. How you spend your time determines your knowledge base to a large extent. Unravel that. Think about how you spend your time determines your knowledge base. Where do you spend your time? What are you learning? What is being reinforced? That goes back to my mom was right. I am a sum of my 5 closest friends. Dang it, Mom. Yes. And so what experiences do you have that's going to influence your decisions? What experience do others have that's going to influence their thought process and their understanding of the world? Yes. Individuals bring with them the hidden rules of the class in which they were raised. That's that generational transfer of knowledge. We won't have time to watch the video, Historical Trauma. Interesting video. I put the link in the notes section of the PowerPoint. If you haven't heard the term yet, go look it up. There's some good information about how we pass trauma down to the next generation. If you need an example, think about how the pandemic is going to affect the generation that's in the public school system right now. And you think they're going to take that experience and transfer it onto their kids when they have kids and say, you don't even know, back in my day, we only had screens and we couldn't play with our friends and blah, blah, blah. So we do transfer our trauma to the next generation. 3 things that help somebody move out of poverty: education, relationships, and employment. Where do you have the most impact? In your role, how can you help people? Do what you do well and wrap support and services around so that they can continue to achieve. Okay, here's what I want you to do. So I know there was some confusion on the last one because I get to talking fast and I apologize. What I want you to do is I want you, and in your workbook, this is written down, so this will be easier. On page 7, you will see a circle. So what I want you to do, and you just need one workbook per group, but I want you to think of an adult you work with, you interact with in generational poverty. So there's been habits of behavior that have established over time. Imagine you followed that person for a year and you observed them all year. What they did, what happened, how they spent their time, decisions they were making. Boil that experience down to one average day. In the circle, write down what they do in one average day. Again, this is on page 7. We're just going to break you up into rooms. You're going to have about, 10, 15 minutes to be able to work through that. I think that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to pop in and out. Bridget will move me in and out of rooms just so I can check in, see how you're doing if you have questions. But do you have any questions before we break you up into those groups? Okay, take it away, Bridget.
Okay, so I'm going to set the breakout rooms to end automatically after 15 minutes, and you'll be in the same groups, and you'll get a 60-minute countdown before the rooms close. So just go ahead and accept the invite to join the rooms, and you should be set. Okay, so how would you like me to just pop you into each room, Melissa?
Sure, that'd be good.
Okay, perfect.
Carrie, Susan, Dana, you doing okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I was
yeah.
muted for a bit because I was on my phone driving my
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
and I couldn't talk. I was like, I can't unmute.
I'm here.
So I apologize. I know. I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. We can roll with it. Crazy world.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was late to the group. I'm not sure I know what we're doing, but I will catch up quickly.
Wonderful. Did you get the PDF of the
I'm on page, yep, so I'm on page 7.
Okay, good. Okay. Then you're caught up. You got this.
Well, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing in breakout groups, but I'm going to trust Carrie and Dana are going to lead me along.
Well, yes. I don't have the PDF, but I've been through Bridges a few times.
And I've been through Bridges once.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're doing the circle, a day in the life. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Perfect.
And there's a link to the workbook in the chat link or
perfect.
the chat box.
Sorry, that I also could not see when I was on my phone.
No, that's okay.
Phones are good, but they're not.
I know. Someone had to get my kids to childcare though, so.
Yeah, I agree.
No problem. Susan, which county are you from?
I represent Sheridan and Johnson County.
Okay, perfect. So we don't actually have anybody in the Johnson Sheridan group. What would be the next closest geographic county?
Yeah, where are Carrie and Dana from? I'm surrounded by Park, Campbell.
You get to choose Fremont, Natrona, Fremont or Natrona.
Oh, Natrona, that's close. That's Casper, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one was Uinta, and you're not close to Uinta.
I am not close to Uinta.
So you should get an invite to the Natrona room.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
No problem.
I got an invite to the Natrona room, which I can go there, but.
Good, fun.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Okay. Okay, and Melissa, you should have an invite for the Fremont room.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is it going to come across my screen?
It should.
Okay.
Let me do it one more time. So we'll put you into Natrona.
Oh, there we go. I got it.
There
Thank
you go.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Which county are you from?
I'm in Converse County, and
Converse,
wherever you
okay.
keep putting me, they just keep wasting my time, and that is very aggravating to me.
I'm sorry.
They're not speaking, they're not being active. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the people you were in the group before? I can pop in there and just help out a little bit.
I was in Fremont.
Okay.
I think he first put me in Goshen, and there was nobody in Goshen, and I said, just
Okay.
not my love language.
Okay. I'll put you into the Fremont.
People. Don't put me in there again.
Okay.
They're not going to be engaging. They're not.
How about if I stick you in the Laramie Platte room?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. Okay, you should receive an invite.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
So I popped in. They're in various levels of engagement. You're muted. Or your audio's not.
Okay, sorry, I had my headset muted. That's why. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I went ahead and popped you into that room. One of the participants who was in that room said that they weren't talking, so I figured that would be a good place to visit. I just visited the, which room was I in? I don't even remember now. I think, oh, I was just in the Natrona room. It looks like they're doing well.
Yep, they're doing well. Uinta's doing well.
Perfect.
It's the one with Dusty and that group and Dana joined in, and then they were starting to get back on track. When I popped in the first time, just to give me a big thumbs up, like we're doing okay. So yeah, I think they're hanging in there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to do this and you're in a workplace and there's just lots going on. So.
It's true. Yeah. Okay. Are you able to navigate between the breakout rooms on your own?
Did. Yeah,
perfect.
I was able to pop into each of them.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think as co-host, you should be able to do that. Okay, perfect. So that's one less thing we have to worry about.
And then I can share screen. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Maybe a couple videos. I'm looking for another piece of data that I found that gives them more information. So I just found it. How much more time do they have?
About 2 minutes, and I'm just broadcasting a message to everybody.
Perfect.
So that they have
and then in 1 minute, I would give them the minute to get back.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, let's see, how's that going to work?
Because if you say rooms will close in 1 minute, if you say rooms will close in a minute, then that will give them that much time.
I think the 60-second countdown starts after the set time. So I set it for 15 minutes. After it hits 15 minutes, it'll give them the automatic countdown.
That's so prepared of you. Usually I go, yeah, you're done, chunk, and then it gives them 60 seconds. Very nice.
Would you like help in popping into the rooms for the next session, or do you think that you're...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's good to just check, and then they kind of can. So when I click breakout rooms now, it says I've been assigned to that one, but then once I got there, then I can move myself in between them. So that was helpful, which I didn't know it would do.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know either.
We're all learning.
Yeah, perfect.
And then when in the recording, it doesn't record their breakout rooms. It only records this main room.
Correct. Yeah.
So I was working with a group last night, and I have to remember to pause it during breakout rooms, because then they see me checking emails and doing this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to go ahead and pause the...
Like the ability to have everybody just stop and join us back in the main group just makes my little teacher heart just giddy. I'm like, haha, I got you. Okay, so hopefully you were able to identify somebody living in generational poverty that you have experienced. Even a stereotype is okay. We're going to hold on to that person, and we're going to work with that again towards the end. Now, if you've done previous Bridges Out of Poverty workshops, you know that we show a video called Tammy's Story, and that link is in the PowerPoint slides if you want to go back and look at that. But what I'm finding is that I like the application of taking this same person that you've identified right now and going back and say, how can I apply these to help that person? And it makes it more real. So I deviate a little bit, but I do recommend if you want to go look at Tammy's story, it is interesting. It's about a woman in Ohio and how she's working through poverty, and you can make some links and find some commonalities. So hopefully you were able to find a person, come up with some themes, What do they do in an average day? Where are they going? Who are they seeing? What are their worries? What businesses are they frequenting? That kind of information. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down or like, meh, how was that? Do you have somebody in mind where you're able to go forward? Okay. Okay, good. And I know that Zoom is challenging, and so we're trying to make this all work. So thank you for participating. And if you have questions, just keep throwing stuff in the chat and we'll work through it together. What I want to do, normally I have the groups share back some of those commonalities. I'm going to, but I'm going to do a little bit different this time. So I'm going to ask you to see what the curriculum comes up with and then find some commonalities and what you came up with and share those. So what you have created is a mental model. So a mental model is, how do I think the world works? I have a picture in my mind, a mental model, of how the world works. It's a theory we use all the time, but we don't stop and ever go, huh, I wonder why that is. It does determine how we act, and it can help or interfere with learning. Now, what Jim said earlier is good. How do you separate your own mental model to connect with somebody else's mental model? Like, duh, of course. You would do this. Think of what's going on in a month from now. That's what we all do. Yes, we do in the middle class world, but in a different planet, in a different mentality, that's a much different concept of living for a month out from now. And there's some strengths and challenges to both. Okay, so this is on, you will see I put at the bottom, study guide, page 9. So you will see that I've given you some page markers for those of you that like to follow along in the book. There's those, but you don't need to. I'm going to walk through it. All right, so the mental model for poverty, some common themes are, yes, entertainment, agency time, transportation, jobs. A lot of these come into play, but let's walk through them in a different way. So if you go to page 9, and I'm not going to share my screen because it's good that we can engage with one another, but let's talk about agency time and transportation and link that together. So think about agencies frequented by the poor in your communities. Where are they? And think about the transportation available in your communities. Does it go there? So I'm going to pick on Cheyenne, because Cheyenne's easy to pick on. So I'm going to pick on Cheyenne. And can you tell me where DFS is? So it's kind of in the middle-ish of town. It's on this side of the airport. The airport's right in the middle of town too. Yay, planning. Okay. Let's pretend that I'm a single mom with toddlers, 2 of them, and I need to go to DFS. So I bundle my kids because if you remember, somewhere around November of last year, and I'm not the only one, but what was our November of last year? Do you remember it? I know, it was a long time ago. It was pre-pandemic. It was weird here because it was icy. We don't usually do ice, but it was icy. Think about some of your areas and think about a month that was particularly fun. Okay, windy, whatever. So here I am, a mom packing up my toddlers in the double stroller. Where do I catch public transportation? Is it right outside my door? No. So maybe it's a couple blocks away. Okay. So I'm going to bundle up my kids. We're going to walk to the bus stop. How much does it take? You tell me in your communities. You can unmute or put it in chat. How much does public transportation cost in your communities? What does it cost to take the bus across town? You have public transportation in your communities.
We don't have it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So sometimes it's non-existent. Sometimes it's $1. True. And I think it's $1 or $2. Yes, Jim. Yeah. So if there's no public transportation, so that's already a barrier. And if I have a couple bucks, that's great. Now I think in Cheyenne, kids ride free, but they don't take strollers. So if I
They'll
get there,
take bikes. Some of them will take bikes though.
but they will take bikes or wheelchairs.
Right. And then the other problem with Cheyenne transportation too is that if you're on the south side, you have to go to the hub and get on another bus to get to where DFS is. So it can take you a good hour and a half to get to DFS in an ice storm when it's, 20 degrees out with 2 kids in a stroller.
Yes, exactly. Think about where the bus drops you off at DFS. So it's a large building. DFS is on the backside. And I've talked to DFS about this and they're like, yeah, we know. They're working on it. So I'm not picking on them. And they're wonderful, amazing people there and they're doing good things. So the bus drops me off with my kids. I've already spent 2 hours-ish and my $2. So I get there. Then I get there and I just rush in the first store because it's cold out, my kids are cold, and so whatever. I get in there, where's the signage? Where am I going? The bus took me there, so I'm thinking this is DFS, but where do I go from here? You can't get from one side to the other. You have to go back out, walk all the way around the building, and go in the door on the other side. If I have the fortitude to do that, then maybe I do that. If I'm already freaked out and thinking, I don't even know, I get back on the bus, I go home. So I get to DFS and I grab my Cheerios out of my pockets and give them to the kids. Okay, we made it this far, we're doing good. They're eating their Cheerios, they're happy. I go up to the counter and they're like, okay, where's your form of ID? Oh, well, I don't have a car, so I don't have a form of ID. Or maybe I did, but now it's expired. Okay, think about where, it's fun to pick on Cheyenne, where is Department of Motor Vehicles where I can get my license in Cheyenne? It's not next to DFS. It's on the other side of the interstate. So if I go back to get on the bus does not go to the DMV. The bus goes near the DMV, but I still have to cross an interstate. And there is an overpass. But if you've driven that way, you know that the overpass is backwards to accommodate truck traffic. I think there's a sidewalk. So if I get across the interstate with the truck traffic, go to the DMV, how long is it going to take at the DMV? A little bit. And they're also wonderful, great people, but there's some systems, some stuff in place. And what is a DMV? 3 forms of verification that you're a Wyoming resident. Passport, because everybody in poverty has a passport. Or proof of residence, another form of ID with a picture on it, like there's a whole bunch of stuff. So if you look at agency time, which is on your list, as well as transportation, you can already see how there might be some barriers. And we're like, just go get a job. Well, where's workforce services? What verification do they need? How do I get there? It's not just do this. Okay, let's keep going around that circle. You see that there's clothing, there's debt, there's family and friends. Yes, family and friends, very important. Why? For people in poverty.
Because you have to learn to depend on each other, because when I need help, you'll be there for me. And when you need help, I'm going to be there for you. We saw stories of people not going to work because they had to go help a friend because they knew that they would need that support later on too. And that relationship was so powerful that it was what they had to depend on. That was their support system.
Excellent. Yes, perfect, Susan. And I've had so many cases where people will sacrifice a job. I can get another job. And the job looked at me sideways anyway when I was there. So it's easy to leave that place of judgment. I can get another job, but I can't get another Uncle Joe. And Uncle Joe is important because when he's sober, he will watch my kids while I borrow his truck and go out to DFS or DMV without having to load up my kids in an ice storm. Friends and family are a huge source of protection and interaction and providing resources. It is stone soup. It is, you have the pot, you have the stew meat, you have the veggies, you have the broth, and I have the place to cook it. We're all going to survive together. And that was eye-opening for me because I'm like, well, they could just, but it's not that easy. And so I've seen people sacrifice jobs for relationships because those relationships are tried and true and they'll be there. They might not be healthy relationships, but they're there when I need them. Okay, keep going. Safety, including, let's put in here the legal system. So let's pretend, I already told you this is me, Melissa, white middle class. So let's pretend I run a red light. What's the first thing that happens? I will get pulled over. And you think those gender norms exist? And they're like, oh, it's okay, Melissa, you don't get a ticket. Yeah, that's baloney. I will get the ticket. Okay, so what does the cop do? Comes up, excuse me, ma'am, do you know what you did? I need your license and registration. And I go, wow. Okay, here's my license and registration. Goes back to the cop car, makes me sweat it out. Am I gonna get a ticket? Yeah, I know I'm gonna get a ticket. I ran a red light. Okay, how much is running a red light? How much is a ticket?
$150.
Thank you for knowing that. I didn't know. $150. But I had my seatbelt on like a good kid, so they took 20 bucks off, and so now it's $130. Woohoo! How do I pay the ticket? What's the process?
The process with the court. Well, first you have to go to court. In our municipality, if you can't pay the ticket right away, you have to go to court.
Okay.
You go to court, judge sets a usually $50 a month payment plan.
Ah, okay.
But for middle class people, I just write a check and I don't have to go to court because I have a checking account.
Yes. And I don't even have to write a check. I can just go online and pay it. Or I can go to the courthouse and go, I didn't, yeah, okay, here you go, take my money. Right? I can contest it. It would be fruitless because I will get caught and have to pay it. Okay. What is that going to do to me, Melissa, white middle class? What is that $120 going to do, or 130, whatever it was? What is that going to do to my budget?
Nothing.
Yeah, it's going to eat into my entertainment budget and my Starbucks and my gas. And I'm going to gnash my teeth and throw a little bit of a temper tantrum and then go on with my life. Okay, let's go back to that single mother. She borrowed crazy Uncle Joe, and you know that he's not really an uncle, right? He's just around enough that people call him uncle. Yes, okay. So I'm borrowed Uncle Joe's truck, and I'm going out to DMV to get my license, run a red light, get pulled over. Where's your license and registration? Well, good Lord, let's hope Uncle Joe put them in the glove box.
And insurance, license, registration, and proof of insurance.
And proof of insurance, yes. Okay, I think this is all here and I think it's up to date. If it's not, how much does the ticket go up?
$450 for no license.
Yep.
$300 for no insurance if the insurance isn't working.
Yep.
Time off work, time away from the kids, to go to court because you're gonna
go to court.
Yeah, no driver's license is mandatory court.
Okay. You're a wealth of information, Dawn. I appreciate this.
Well, the joys of being a probation officer.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Okay, so all that comes into play. I'm poor. I can't pay it. So I don't. What happens next?
You have well, she places you on a payment plan. You can't pay the payment plan. You have a warrant for failure to pay. They pick you up.
Yep.
Well, in a municipality, they don't actually arrest you. They just remind you that you have a warrant and you have to be at court on Wednesday. You go to court on Wednesday and the judge says, okay, did you get your driver's license? If you did, in fact, get your driver's license, then she'll drop it down to about 150. If you didn't, and you keep driving, you get another ticket for not having a valid driver's license, then you can't get a driver's license until that's paid.
Here's what we also see a lot too. They don't show up at court, period. So now there's a warrant for their a warrant to appear, and they can get arrested later, especially if they already have warrants out or they're on probation. Things can get revoked and it can be a whole big thing. It grows.
Absolutely.
And it grows.
What happens to my kids? So if I get arrested.
You mean if you're arrested or not arrested?
If I'm arrested, because I've been skipping out on all of these warrants.
Okay.
Yeah, so Uncle Joe's probably not going to take them very long.
Okay, yep. So me, Melissa, white middle class, running a red light is a pain in the ass. Somebody who doesn't have the resources, running a red light could mean I lose my kids. And once I get my feet back under me, how easy is it for me to go back, work through the system to get my kids back? So yes, and I love the word that Susan used, it grows. So if you look at stress-related illnesses, that's a lot of stress to be under. And it's not equally distributed. Keep going around jobs rather than careers. Health, we've already talked about. Chemical dependency is a coping mechanism or a cash flow. Mental health, yes. Housing, and how many of you know people who have an Uncle Joe that's living with them? And why is that? Well, Uncle Joe has a truck. Or Uncle Joe is there kind of watching the kids while I run to work. Criminal justice system, we've already talked about. Food insecurities rather than food habits. Childcare, how much does childcare cost in your area? One child, 1 month.
$650.
Okay, good. Keep going. What else?
If you aren't smart and get them on a kid care chip, you're looking at $125 every time you have to take them to the doctor to keep their shots up to date so they can even be in daycare.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard anywhere from that up to $1,400 a kid.
So when you went to county right now at our major daycare, so if you have childcare assistance, you are still paying out of pocket. You're still paying out of pocket $1.75 to $2.50 per hour per kid. And so if you're thinking that you're only making $10 an hour and you're still paying rent and utilities, I mean, that's quite a bit of money. And that's even after the state kicks in and helps you with your childcare.
And we know of people who have done the math and say it's easy, it's cheaper if I stay home. And then we say, get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even if you have insurance and you have a little one, you're still paying for the birth of them and the hospital says, oh no, you have to pay a minimum of $150 a month. And you're like, blood and turnip. Yeah.
Right, right. My mom wanted to know if they'd repossess me if she didn't pay the hospital bills. Like, are you gonna take her back? No, they paid on me forever. And they didn't have much money. They just kept paying. Ta-da. Okay, keep going. Entertainment is on the list. It is a coping mechanism. It's also a connector. And so what happens if I'm a parent and my kids are going to school and I want them to fit in? I worked for an agency and they said, do not judge the income of the family by how many game consoles you see. Because it is a way for those kids to connect with their friends. And look at now, entertainment and education are mushy because they're being done on the same device. And if my kid doesn't have this, I can't provide them this, this, and this, but I can get them online and they can play Fortnite with their friends and be kind of cool, then yay, I can provide that for my kid. And guess what? That entertainment is a built-in babysitter. I know they're here and they're safe, rather than out running around who knows where. So entertainment, not only for the parent, but also for the individual, yeah, it's a way to connect with the outside world. Okay, notice the circles around the outside. So the interaction between people in poverty and social services, it's positive and challenging. Would you agree? Like, yes, I need them. However, they also have the ability to look at me crosswise and think that I'm not a fit parent and take my kids away from me. The same thing happens in the school system. I don't find parents in poverty typically signing up for PTO because that school nurse, administrator, head of PTO has the ability to say, oh, I don't know about Susie. I don't think she's eaten. And so it is more of a, yes, they're there. I don't have to pay for childcare anymore. Hooray. But I'm also not going to be as involved. And I know these are overgeneralities and I know they're stereotypes and I know they don't fit everybody. So let me just throw that in there. But how does that limit interaction with the school system? Showing up to parent-teacher conferences and calling when the kid gets sick again, because I'm worried about that judgment. The interaction between people in poverty and the police, kind of tenuous. Maybe I have several warrants, so I keep my head down. Do you think how willing am I going to be to call 911? Maybe if I'm really in trouble, but probably not because I don't want to call attention to whatever.
One of the things that we see with low-income families, that they live in apartments that say, if law enforcement is called to your place, you could get kicked out. And they don't call law enforcement for domestic violence or other incidents that happen because it can jeopardize their place to live. Now, is that legal? Is it right? No, but it does happen and it can be unspoken.
And I was just going to say, sometimes it's not even posted. It's
right.
just
It's just, you just know that you will get kicked out if law enforcement comes there.
It's
and landlords have, you know, they get a bad rap because they're trying to protect their investment. However, I think that the cycle of needing law enforcement, especially I mean, I grew up in a poor family. And so my stepdad was a heroin addict. He was physically abusive to myself and my sister. He was loud with my mother. Fighting and yelling was common. He ran from the cops from our home, jumped out bathroom windows. Like, I know what this is like. And it's really hard to put your roof in jeopardy to deal with something that it just feels like you're not going to get the help you need even if you do call. About the only situation that I can remember, and I grew up in ghettos in California, that we would definitely call the police is if somebody was injured. When I was 8 years old, this is going to be a personal story. I'll try to, that's just the mindset for those who struggle.
And I think also when we see this a lot with females living alone, they have an unregistered boyfriend living with them. And if they get caught with that extra person, that revenue, the extra household revenue that may be coming in is jeopardized. And again, they're looking at being caught with somebody who's not a registered tenant there. And
or it could be even as simple as having a stash of drugs in the house that they consider recreational, or cats or dogs that they didn't tell the landlord about. I mean, it could be really that simple, that small.
I really believe there are so many valid reasons why you do not want law enforcement in your neighborhood, your house, your apartment building, anywhere. You don't want them there.
Mhm. And I think for the sake of this seminar, it bears a lot of really good importance for us to pay attention to the fact that most of us on this call are Caucasian. And so for us to call, and most of us on this call are middle class. So for us to call the police, we have no fear about what's going to take place. But if you're a person of color who has a record, calling the police, even if you are 100% in the right, puts you into a light that you have not traditionally done well under. And you don't have the same trust that we do. If you are in that people group, in that demographic, it doesn't work out the same way for you all the time.
On a similar note to that, Eric, in Teton County, we have a very large immigrant population, Hispanic, Eastern European, and most of our families are of mixed status, documentation-wise.
Yep.
So the kids are U.S. citizens, one parent may be permanent resident and one parent not. And so just calling may result in a complete breakdown of your family.
Yeah, and I think in terms of legal, Carrie, and legal ramifications for that, I don't believe that unless the officer or whoever's involved decides they want to, as a normal citizen, report up to INS or anything like that, they aren't required to. So if they so choose, they don't have to. But what that results in is those families not seeking that help. They won't come to community action because they're afraid of all the reporting that gets done, that they'll get reported to INS because they're receiving a benefit that they're not paying into a system for, and so they don't receive the help that they need.
And I think Carrie is right. I lived in Driggs in Teton Valley, and the whole idea was I've never lived in a community where ICE is active. ICE is active in Jackson and Teton Valley. And so, I've never lived in a coastal community or anywhere where there's a border community. In the middle of in the edge of Wyoming and Idaho is a very active ICE, and it is a very isolated community as well due to those concerns.
Yeah. In my years in California, I grew up in the Central Valley, not Central Valley, Northern California, San Joaquin Valley in Sacramento. But in the Central Valley is where I think like 70% of the produce the United States consumes is grown there. And the folks who work those fields are 80% undocumented, 80-90% undocumented. And ICE is incredibly active in California, especially in that Central Valley. And I don't think it's surprising to note that palms get greased to keep ICE off of farms out there. So there's very real ramifications for people who are in need to not reach out for help.
So good application, real life of what the mental model is. And I appreciate, because you're my high understanding group, because you work in this environment and So it's a good reminder of mental models, yes, and how do we breathe? So breathe, because I know that we've been through a lot of information, and yes, when you start to think about it, I call this first section my doom and gloom phase, because it's just like, whoa, holy cow, how are they still upright? They're resilient, and look for the strength that they have, because that's going to help you connect with them. Down here, the businesses that are frequented by the poor, exploited by the poor: pawn shops, liquor stores, corner stores, rent-to-own stores, laundromats, fast food services, check cashing services, temp services, used car lots, and dollar stores. And I don't know if you've been following Dollar General's rise. The Dollar General is being likened to Walmart of the 90s. Remember Walmart in the 90s shut down main streets in small towns? Dollar Generals are moving into creating food deserts, because they're moving into small towns and putting up a Dollar General across the street from a grocery store. Well, if I have limited funds, It's cheaper for me to go to Dollar General and grab food out of the refrigerator section and feed my family than it is for me to go to the mom and pop grocery store across the street and buy fresh food, fruits, vegetables, meat to feed my family. And then you look at how that impacts health. That circles back around again. Okay, so I want you to hang in there a little bit longer. I want to give you some data. I want to show a video. My guess is we'll probably take a break around 10-ish. Let me give you some more information along these lines, and then we'll take a break and then come back. So,
Melissa,
yeah.
can I interrupt just a moment?
Sure.
So obviously there's a lot of people here that have a lot better knowledge of what's going on lately during COVID, and I'm just a bureaucrat administrator, and I'm curious with, you know, we mentioned about the schools, what's happening out there with the fact that you know, parents, they can't do the child care route. Oftentimes they've got children back in the home learning online and so forth, and they might not even have internet access for all we know. So what's happening? How are caseworkers dealing with that out there?
Anybody want to jump in?
Are you asking about how we're dealing with schools and COVID? I guess I don't understand what the question is.
I guess I'm curious what's going on with the parents, low-income parents. How are they dealing with the fact that, you know, for example, the schools expect them to help, you know, teach the kids in their homes, have internet access, have, you know, everything available to do the learning from home, and, you know, I don't see how that's possible right now for low-income families.
Well, I can tell you that in Fremont County, our kids are going to school. So we're not doing the homeschooling stuff. There are parents that are choosing to homeschool, and I think those are not the low-income parents.
So, and Jim, I will answer too. Your friend Kassan Matson is one of our program managers who runs the Parent Liaison program in Sheridan County. So one of our programs is directly and intimately involved in the school district. There are a lot of pushes from the school district to really help parents find a way to get their kids to school. However, what we have experienced is an outbreak of COVID in one of our schools because they sent a sick child because they had no other alternatives to send or to keep their child at home. We are doing a hybrid learning situation up here where we're in classrooms as much as possible. However, if you are sick or you have to quarantine because of contact with a positive test, then you can go online and see the classroom. All the classrooms have video linkages and everything, but it's still such a barrier for families who have to work and take care of a child. Some businesses are not taking advantage of the sick leave available to them through the federal government, and some employees are being punished because they have a sick child by losing their job. I think it's up to us to make sure that we're informing as much as possible that there is business relief so that their employees can take sick leave to care for a child out of school because of COVID. But not everybody, especially like really small businesses, don't know that they even qualify for that. And so I think we have to help our clients by doing some light case management and informing some of their caseworker or their employers that they have those options. But it's so far so good, fingers crossed, but we are still seeing a lot of people who are choosing to send sick kids, and that is kind of a barrier for us getting
We had
everybody.
an outbreak at my son's school. He goes to McCormick Middle School here, or junior high here in Cheyenne.
Yeah,
And
we had
I think about a third of the school has been sent home. Football season has been canceled, I think, already, or at least portions of it. and the entire football team can't be there because of an outbreak that happened. And I don't know if it was due to a sick student or a sick teacher, but somebody brought COVID into the school. And a lot of folks don't realize, I actually did have COVID over the summer, and it acts like a cold. 98% of the people who get COVID, it acts like a cold, and it's not high fever, but it has some weird symptoms. And so you go to school thinking you're fine, and you don't want to miss school, or some kids don't want to miss school, so they just say they're fine, and they slink their way through the screening. But depending on how small a small business owner is, how small their operation is, they look, let me not generalize too far. They may look at the funding from the federal sources to protect paychecks for employees as a pain in the butt, or a really big difficult hurdle for them to get over when they're inundated with other things. So that factors in. I think you're right.
Take a look how this conversation relates back to how mushy and complicated it is. Where do you have the most impact? Is it working with the individual and getting them the resources they need to work through COVID-related disparities? Because what COVID has done is highlighted a lot of the disparities, not only what Eric said earlier with income level, but also with race and access, location. Yes. Where do you have, because it'd be great if you could do everything and change the world. Go, do that. Where do you have the most impact? Are you dealing with individuals? I work with Climb Wyoming, and when I was working with their last cohort, one of them was saying, well, my internet, okay, we got you a router. How's that doing? Do you need a longer extension cord? Like, what are the things that we can do to help you be able to take Climb classes online, as well as keep your kids in a virtual school environment and maintain that level of normalcy and survival? Is it working within your institution, your agency? Do you have things in place where you are talking about the disparities and what's coming up, and how, as an agency, we may be putting up unintentional barriers? Because we come at it from our mental model, our brain, yes, but how do we look at it for somebody coming in? Like the woman who had to walk all the way around the outside of the building in an ice storm with 2 toddlers. What are we doing as an institution? What is your community doing? Are they WIC? I know in Cheyenne, in Laramie County, provides, that's on an institution level, but they recognize the community barriers of public transportation. So they'll pay for your taxi so you can make it to your appointment. So we are addressing community barriers with our institution. What policies exist that keep people from succeeding? And when it comes to COVID, guess what? We can't just fix this and be done. We need to address all kinds. So Jim, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's very important that we think about, this is not going to be, once we get a vaccine, we're all golden again. There are issues that are coming up that we're going to need to keep dealing with. Yes. So take a staff meeting and say, okay, let's put another hat on and let's think about what's going on, which I'm sure you guys do. However, be very intentional with your conversations. A lot of this doom and gloom phase, you guys already get and you guys already know. Yes. But how many times do you get running through your to-do list and your emails and you forget to stop? Which is why I'm glad for a space like this where you can back up and remind yourself, yes, there's a lot of resilience and we need to keep working. And how do we come up with different things and think outside the box rather than just keep going through our workday? I did pull in some data. You guys probably already are experts on this. This is the state data from the census, small area income poverty estimates. And this I pulled off quickly last night from 2018 census data. The ages of percent, all ages of people in poverty in each of the counties. And then what I found horrifying was the ages of 5 to 17-year-old families in poverty by percentage. And you can go up and look this up, and I did put a link in the PowerPoint slide. If you also go to livingwage.mit.edu, the living wage is the hourly rate that an individual in a household must earn to support themselves and their family. The assumption is that the sole provider is working full-time and the state minimum wage is the same for all individuals. What I like about it is that I pulled in state typical expenses. So MIT.edu says that typical expenses for 1 adult and 2 children for food is this. And you go down childcare, housing, they take all of this, they use this data to calculate how much you need to have a living wage to meet all those expenses, or a poverty wage, which if you cut corners, this is what you need, versus minimum wage is $7.25 across the state. So let's take that 1 adult, 2 children. For living wage, I need to be making $30.42 an hour. For poverty wage, I can get by with making $12.38 an hour. The minimum wage is $7.25. Note when it jumps, so if you have 2 adults and 1 working, look, it drops, because the implication is that 1 adult is staying home with the kids. So I can make less, $24.25, but this number stays the same, right? Oh no, sorry, I got off on my count here. 1 adult, 2 kids, this is 2 adults, 1 working, 2 kids, goes from there. Typical, sorry, I changed that last night. It's supposed to be Wyoming annual salaries. Management, I know this one's hard to read. If you're in management, you're making almost 90 grand. Legal, 60 grand. Education, 48 grand. Healthcare support, 31 grand. Office admin, 35 grand. So you'll have to do the math to figure out how that equates to living wage, poverty wage. Bridget, I will correct these typos before you send it out. Let me show you a couple other things that other people from my workshops have highlighted. If you've been to the Wyoming Women's Foundation website, they have what is the wage gap in your county, as far as, of course, it's from the Women's Foundation, so they're looking at the gender wage gap here, and then you can also go in, there is a self-sufficiency calculator, which I really like. How do I become self-sufficient? You can choose your county, so if we go to Lincoln County, and I can play this out, how many adults we have, there's 1 adult with 2 kids, one's a preschooler, 1 is in, there we go, school, no teenagers, and how much I expect to pay, how much do I expect to make? And you can print that out, and that helps people kind of understand and piece out. The other one I like is this one. If you've been to University of Wisconsin Department of Medicine website, I like their mapping function, because you can pick a state, and it takes, this is all my data geek stuff, but you can pick state only deciles, state data, or you can compare it on a national level. Let's just do the state. You can see that the least disadvantaged group, so the counties that are doing well versus the most disadvantaged counties that are struggling, and play that out. What I like is you can really zoom in. So let's pick on, we have a lot from Uinta County. So you look at the area, and you can even zoom in to actual Evanston and play out, and it'll start to give you streets and understandings of where this is. Let me caution you. You can't say, oh, you live in the red zone, you're poor. No. Every school district deals with poverty. It is not by zip code, but it does give you an understanding of where we need to play this out and how we need to accommodate and think about. Remember, your key knowledge of access is where you spend your time, and what do we need to do, where are people living, and how does that influence their decisions. Okay, I'm going to show you this video. Let me enable sound, even though it's just music. but it's nice music. you can find that on YouTube just by searching the Adams County wage gap. And then I also put the link in the notes section. So you should see the PowerPoint again, correct? Yeah. Okay, cool. So think about, with all this doom and gloom, breathe. And you guys are wonderful people. You chose the careers you're in and you are doing things and helping people. Yay. It's still a good reminder to back up and say, okay, it's going to take time. It takes time. How many of you have made a New Year's resolution? How long did it last? 2 months? 2 weeks? 2 days? 2 minutes? Change is hard even if you want it. And if there's a bunch of barriers or perceived barriers, then yes, change is hard. So if does a person have a sense of being linked to the mainstream of society? Do they feel like an outsider? If they feel like an outsider, do they receive your messages you're giving them as information, or is it noise? Is it like Charlie Brown? Wah, 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 wah. What are you doing next month? I don't know. I need to get through today. Does the person have the resources to carry out the plans? Do they get meaningful feedback from society? And does society's feedback make a difference? Breathe. It is a big issue, but it can be done. Be patient and persistent with yourself and with others. The best way is to connect with the person. It's not going to happen if there's not trust involved, which is where we're going later. I'm going to give you a break. So take 15 minutes. It's 10 o'clock. Take until 10:15, stretch, go get another cup of coffee, walk around, do what you need to do. I will see you at 10:15. And I'll hang out if anybody wants to chat or have questions. But breathe. That would be good. Hello, Kyle. I'm sure you were waving at me, or Angie, or others. Thank you. Hello, Greenma. Green now. Green now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm making stuff up. Okay, how are you doing? Okay, good. Thank you. Again, you're in your worlds, you get it, you know. But it is good to take that reminder. We're going to keep layering on some concepts. I'm going to whoosh through the next couple circles quickly because the focus is really how do we work with people in poverty. The others are an understanding, awareness, but we aren't going to be as in depth for that part. So let me go back to sharing slides. And I just want to make some comparisons to the mental model we had for poverty, as well as the mental model we have for people in middle class and in wealth. And again, this information is in your PDF, so if you want to look at it or if you want to find it later, you can. But note that the things around the circle, there's some differences, and then there's also some similarities. Instead of jobs, we have careers. Very future oriented, and I know we're moving careers more now than we have in previous generations, but it's still along the same line. And a job is for a paycheck, and a career is you want to be there and you have dedicated your time to be there. Education, mortgage payments, not just housing, but we're investing in our house, asset development, working long hours, loving and loathing it. Like, it's very much a middle class person to go, oh, I worked 65 hours last week. Aren't I cool? But, right. So we know we want a work-life balance, but we are not good about coming up with it. Now, I do some workshops on generational communication, and I do see that that's a generational issue. Our kids, I'm a Gen Xer, and our kids are like, oh, I watched my parents work themselves to the, silly to be able to do all of this. I'm not, because that didn't look like fun. And so the younger generation is like, no, you're paying me for 8 hours, so I'm going to work 8 hours. The older generation is like, what you can do that? Like, what? That's allowed? So I see some conflict developing because, yes, we have a contract and we say, this is what we're paying you to work. And then when they don't, we're kind of mad, but then kind of jealous. So I'm very much middle-class mindset is to work those long hours. If you keep going, there is retirement is in there, planning for the future. Yes, very future-oriented. Civic groups, and clubs, political action, still with mental health and chemical dependency issues. Yes. Not just debt, but credit card debt. So we're putting off that till later. Note the icon for health and prevention. So before, in your book, it doesn't have all the fun icons, but on the slides, it had a little doc in the box, you know, like a little doctor's bag. So it is going to the ED or the ER, getting your health taken care of. Look at the icon here. One of my credit students one time says, oh yeah, my friend and I talk when we are super wealthy, we're going to be so skinny because we're just going to lay around and do yoga all day. Which, that's the luxury of time. Yes, go do that. But think about how in middle class, it is proactive healthcare. And I have genetic markers for breast cancer in my family. So every year I take time off work and I go get my mammogram, sometimes 2 times because they don't see it the first time. So then they got to double check the second time. And I make sure I do that every year. Think about somebody who's living in poverty. Why do I need to take time off of work to deal with something that is so abstract and probably won't happen, and I don't have the funds to pay for it? So I will not do that because I got other things more important right now. Today, my concern is how am I going to make rent? And so why solve a problem that may not happen in the future? This is big in the healthcare world because that proactive health care goes a long way and saves a lot of money if we can catch it with a mammogram than when you have stage 4 whatever. But this is a very much a future-oriented mentality. Shopping, vacation, social media, although I would put social media on all 3 designations. I think it's so much impermeated our world. I don't think it's a middle class thing anymore. Family and friends is here. Tell me the difference between family and friends, the people in poverty that we've already talked about. What is different about family and friends for people in middle class? What do they mean to you? You tell me.
I think family and friends, especially friends, become ultra important, more so than when we are spending our lives working. You know, my generation, we don't have a lot of friends. We don't hang out. We don't go places with them, even as couples, even singly. You know, me and my husband never go hang with friends, as opposed to my children, who, whether they're in a relationship or not, married or not, they will go have a drink with friends. They will have a night out with friends. Very different. But when you're young, well, or any age, and you're living in poverty, how common is it for you and your friends, your homies, to just sit on the couch all day and watch Netflix because you're not working, you don't really have any money, and that's what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that also is a time sensitive thing. Like I have all day to do this. Yes. Friends and family are important to people in middle class, but I would say they're secondary to the job. And that's harsh. And I love my friends and family. Middle class are less dependent on friends. It is a choice. Yes, to go hang out. And Sherry, you're right. I don't choose to go hang out couples time, whatever. It's secondary to, okay, I got to work all week. And then on the weekend, we got to do yard work or whatever. And we'll make time, but it's not every day or every week. I like Carol's comment that family comes first. Yes. And middle class is very much strongly believes that. And we work hard to provide for our family. So that's a true statement. And that's a lot of our driving factors. However, think about how many sick vacation days do you get a year? What's the average, do you think?
It's 40 hours.
Okay.
A vacation. Because I know, like, when my mom and dad are in their late 70s and early 80s, and the first question they ask me is, hey, if you can get off work, do you think that you might be able to make it over for this event? And it's always work comes first. And we always say family always comes first, but their messaging to me is, but work comes first. We recognize that. And we expect you to work first and then come home.
And Susan, that's excellent. Yes. Think about if you have aging parents, because a lot of our parents are aging. And if I need to stay at home and take care of my aging parent, how willing or how long is my job going to let me do that? Like, yes, family comes first during your 2 weeks of vacation time. So we send a very mixed message. Yes, family comes first, but it is you work hard so you can provide for your family. It isn't you can, what Sherry was saying, hang out with them. And so we don't often clarify that when we talk with people. I do another version of the workshop called Workplace Stability. And it is about talking to employers about how to retain people that grow up in generational poverty, because we tell them the family is first. But if they have a kid with chronic ear infections, we're really reluctant for them to take them to the doctor again for antibiotics. And so we send kind of a mixed message. And I think the messages are there. And what you said, and Carol, yes, true. But how we interpret that message is big. And so if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work on empathy and vulnerability and leadership and all of that, she says, clear is kind. The clearer we can be with people, the kinder it is. And I think that includes ourselves as well. Okay, so friends and family important, yes. But in a way that supports, yes, we're still going to go to work. A middle class is very much future focused, and your job is a part of your identity. And in America, that's huge. When you ask an American, what do? They describe their jobs. Well, I'm a teacher. Well, I'm a engineer. Well, I'm a whatever, right? You ask somebody from France what they do, they describe their hobbies. I'm a painter. I'm a sculptor. Work is secondary. Work supports their hobbies rather than I do my hobbies when I have time around work. So what Jim had said earlier about, yes, how do we get rid of our own mental model and reach people where they are? Some of it is recognizing where those mental models come from. Okay, if you keep going around the circle, the next one is children. And previously, the icon for children are important, but the icon was a playground. This one, it's a soccer ball. So there is a video that you can look at later. Annette LaRue has done some great work on unequal childhoods and talks about what skills do students learn on unsupervised playgrounds, so not during the school day. Always cracked me up. My kids would come home from school and they immediately say, can we go to school and play? Yeah, we're just there all day. Why are you going back? Well, they wanted to go back because now there weren't all these rules and ramifications and they can hang out with their friends. Like, it's a different environment when it's not the playground people, what do they call it? Playground people hanging out. So tell me what skills would a child learn on an unsupervised playground? What do they learn? Unsupervised play.
How to resolve their own conflicts.
How to resolve their own conflicts. Excellent. Yes. Independence, survival, problem solving. Natrona County Community Action, what did you guys have a minute ago?
We were going to say profanity.
Yeah, true. Yes. That's where you learn all the good dirt.
Absolutely, they learn those things.
Yes. Think about the skills of survival, of connection, of how much I can push somebody. So it's what I call street smarts. Like, I know that I can use humor to diffuse this situation and get out of it, or I know when I need to back down because there's a hierarchy pecking order. Like, you have to be really aware of how you interact with people to survive on an unsupervised playground. Okay, tell me what a child learns by playing soccer for Parks and Rec or at school. What do they learn?
Social skills, teamwork, rules, and how to interact in a group setting, I guess.
Excellent. Yes, good. Keep going. Sportsmanship. Hierarchy.
How
You're
upset,
evaluating
how upset and irrational their parents can be, and or other adults.
Yes. Do you have a thing? My kiddo was in Parks and Rec soccer, and they had Silent Saturday, and they gave all the parents suckers. Like, put this in your mouth and stop talking. So we all walked around with suckers in our mouth because it was really not about the parents, it's about the kids on that one day. You also look at how much your parents are supporting you and engaged. When I talk about generational communication, we talk about helicopter parents and lawnmower parents. Look it up. But look at how the other thing they learn is pre-planning, right? Don't forget you have soccer after school, so put your shin guards in your backpack so you're prepared. So that future thinking, I will tell you, I believe, me, Melissa, personally, you need both. Like, you need that unsupervised play, creativity, how to work with a group and survive and move through life. And then you also need the skills you learn in soccer, Boy Scouts, church activities, DECA, all of those things that are going to set you up. Which set of skills is going to set you up to succeed in the workplace? If you come hot off the playground with your street smarts into a work environment, you might struggle because you might have some colorful language that might not fit there. And if you are pre-planning and you have those skills to network and to interact and recognize the strengths of all the players, those set you up nicely in the workplace. I still think we need both. Okay, if you keep going around daycare, yes. Hobbies and interests is in here. I would say it's secondary to work. And then if you go back to the top, think about the interaction between people in middle class and social services. We work there or we support them. Between middle class and the school system, still very excited when I don't have to pay for childcare anymore. And a little bit of entitlement because I pay that teacher's salary with my taxes. So if I need them, I will call them. And education is very important. So I'm very invested in making sure that my kid does well, even so much that I put the teacher's phone number in my phone on speed dial and call them when I think that something's weird. God love our teachers. Between middle class and the police, Jim had mentioned this earlier. It was Jim. Sorry if I'm misnaming something. But it is, again, very familiar. Like, I pay their salary. And if there's something wrong, I have no hesitancy or fear about jumping in and saying, yeah, 911, you need to come help me out. True story, I accidentally put my keys on the seat, went to let my kid out of the car seat when he was little, ended up locking the door and locking the keys and the kid in the car. Took me less than a minute to call 911. They sent the fire department. It was a hot day. They sent the fire department, and they let the kid out of the car. It was no big deal. I did not blink an eye. Like, duh, that's what I do. That's what my taxes are there for. Middle class and religious organizations, I either frequent there or I use it to support or to feel good about giving back. Businesses frequented by the poor, shopping and strip malls, bookstores, banks, fitness centers, vet clinics, office complexes, coffee shops, restaurant, bars, and golf courses. Vet clinics, how many of you know you can get health insurance for your pet? Well, that's my fur baby. And they're going to get sick. So I need to plan for that. That is very much a middle class mentality. Yes, planning for the future. Other one, then last one, mental model for wealth. You know, there's a lot less icons around the outside. We lose the circles around the top or the businesses. It is vacation. Same icon here for legal issues that we had with people in poverty, but now they're in power typically. So I have lawyers and accountants as a part of my staff. Media, political linkages, board of directors, private club associations, travel, not just housing or mortgage, oversight of corporate property and personnel concerns. I have to pay a staff to manage that. International and national advisors, event sponsorship. Here's what I want you to do. Think about, and it's also in your workbook, look at the word in the middle, connections. Look at the word in the middle of middle class, achievement. The word in the middle of the poverty was relationship. What is their driving force? In poverty, it's about relationships. How do we connect with people so we have enough stone soup resources to keep going? With middle class, relationships are important, but they're secondary to achievement, so much so that we don't even really stop to question that. My friends don't call me right now. They know I'm working. I'm in the same boat with Susan. My mom lives with me. It's great. But she knows that I'm working. So she'll bug me later. Or she'll say, are you going to have lunch? And then I'll go downstairs and we'll have lunch. But that's kind of that mental model, unwritten rule. Relationship and connection, both people oriented. What's the difference between the two? Relationship, all about inclusivity. Oh, you're cool. You have a truck? You can watch my kids? Sure. So it's all about, yes, we don't really care who you are or judge you, right? We all have things. Come on in. With wealth mentality, it's about people and connections, but it's about the right kind of people. So it's about exclusivity. You have to be the right kind of person to be a part of my inner circle. And then middle class, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and in that wealth, I have a friend that is the very high wealth area. They're very suspicious of people because there are people who are wanting things from them. So that connection of having the right connections is really impossible, but it's always very suspicious in terms of what do they want from me?
Yes.
Or do they like me for me, or do they like me for my resources?
Yes.
And that's not something that you see in low income or poverty thinking. It's like, hey, we can benefit each other. Great. It's like a transactional relationship.
Good point. Yeah.
I think that that's a really good distinction. My family that I grew up with, my sister, aunts, uncles, all that, are still in that in the same place that they were when I was growing up, my sister especially. And she's angry at me, doesn't talk to me anymore because all she ever called me for was money. Her daughter is the same way. Uncle Eric is rich. Well, Uncle Eric isn't rich. Uncle Eric
But you're
just
richer
has.
than me.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I have absolutely helped them. But there is a suspicion with those who have lots of money because random people will reach out and try to make connections and try to see if they can get a friendship with someone who will further their agenda. And that's a very real issue for those who have considerable resources. And so that chasm it's very difficult to bridge for people.
I told you my dad grew up in generational poverty and then became middle class. And he's the oldest of 7 kids, and he did help them and his parents. And he had to draw a line like Eric did and say, if I keep supporting all of you, I'm not going to be able to support my wife and my girls. So he had to draw a line, and that was not well received and caused some resentment. In order for somebody to move across designations, they have to stop the relationship at least for a short period of time.
One other thing, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I remember in a previous Bridges training that I had gone to, there was a conversation about the generational poverty and people that leave. And in this particular context, it was the reservation. And they were like, how come they don't come back? Or how come people who have been successful, who have left, who have gone to college? Because the conversation was about, we see a lot of people in low income or poverty living that don't see people who went to college. They don't see the people who were successful. They don't see, because they didn't come back to that community, which keeps that community, and I use that term very loosely, could be the household or your neighborhood or your community. They don't come back because they escaped. And I wonder sometimes about that sociological impact of not coming back, of being Eric, saying, you know, I can't help anymore. There's only so much that I can do, and I have to take care of my family and my children. And that resentment of, they think they're too good for me. Now they're better than me and they're not going to want to come back, which keeps that whole cycle of generational poverty going.
Yep. Excellent example.
Do you know?
And we've heard of some good mothers that say, I want my kids to go to college, and will work hard to help them go to college. And then when they do, they're gonna then say, okay, what? Look who's too good for us now. Look who's home from the big life, and wonder how the rich people are, right? So it is that, yes, I want you to achieve, but I'm also a little resentful of it. And I think it's a two-way street. You know, the people that leave, do I go back and work through that? And the people that encourage them to leave, do they accept them fully when they have new experiences? Yeah.
You know,
I think, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I ran over top of you twice now. No, go ahead.
New poverty. You know, I think that's something too that people have a hard time with is, you know, you grew up with money, you grew up knowing money, or as an adult, you found success and then all of a sudden you lost your success or you lost your money, and now you are what they call new poverty. So you went from making, let's say, $100,000 a year to making $12,000, $14,000 a year, and you have to adjust to that new norm. And I think that that is something that is very real. And we're seeing a lot of that now. We're seeing a lot of that in our office. You know, people that, you know, you would think that they, just because somebody makes a lot of money, that they have the skills to plan for their, you know, for something to happen. But really, they, you know, they went through all of their savings, or they didn't have any, you know, a whole lot saved, but they went from making a lot of money to losing their job. 6 months went by, they don't have anything, and all of a sudden they're now forced to work in a job making $10, $12 an hour, and they do not know how to handle that at all.
I'm thinking Campbell County. Campbell County is struggling.
Yeah.
And I went to Campbell County and I thought I would feel it when I was there, but Campbell County is a, and if you're from Campbell County, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a boom and bust cycle. So they had kind of an acceptance, like, yeah, I know, we're in our bust, we'll be fine. This is what we do. And I was like, okay, because I expected this despair and this unknown and whatever. And they're like, well, we'll roll with it. Grandpa went through this and he came out and did it. But that adjustment does, you're right, take time.
I think that that's a really interesting point, Melissa. The truth of the matter is, I think a lot of people, they adjust to hardship. They adjust to the cycles of their community to the point that they aren't afraid of downturns and things. They expect them. The folks that struggle in those communities that are, you know, highly driven based on mining and logging and things like that, where there are constantly pushes to open up and produce more, open up, or close down and produce less and save the environment, or who cares about the environment, or whatever place you stand. Those places, the people who struggle are the ones who come in to do the work and have never been there before. The folks who make their living in and around that community, they have figured out a way to eke their life through and do well enough that they are okay. And I think in Wyoming, that's one of the things that's really great about our state is that they get through those lean years by supporting each other.
And look at how ironic that statement is, because our mentality is you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we're all going through a rough time, we are the first to say, yes, we are here to help you.
As long as you're part of the community.
Yes, and you're not from Cheyenne. Cheyenne's an anomaly. I know. Yes, I know. I get it. And if you are not going to continue to ask for help, like we are a giving state for a period of time,
yep.
But we do not want to keep helping you for 10 years or 5 or 3, right? So we want to stand you up and then you go. We'll help you stand up, but we're not going to walk alongside you for that long a time. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to move on. Good, and thank you for taking the theories and applying it to your world, because I think that's where the rich conversation comes from going forward. I want to go to this concept that we've touched on all morning, which is the tyranny of the moment. So it is the need to act overwhelms any willingness people have to learn. If I want to talk to you about all these great theories and somebody's an active shooter is coming in your building, how willing are you going to be like, okay, Melissa, keep talking? No. If you are in a stressful situation, you can't take in new information. Well, you can't. It's hard. The healthier you are psychologically, or the less you may seem to need to change, the more you can change. And I think we forget that in middle class land. You read Educated by Tara Westover? Have you read that book? It's fascinating. Ate it up. But she said a powerful thing, because she grew up in Idaho, very poor. And then she went to school and now she has money. And she says, I began to experience the most powerful advantage of money is the ability to think of things besides money. And again, it's not necessarily a dollar amount. It is about resources. If you have resources, you can think of other things. If you don't have resources, if you're in survival mode, that's going to take, it gets back to Maslow. Those basic needs aren't met. Those take priority over everything else. So we need to breathe, be patient and persistent, because we can help people through that. I like agencies that are your immediate support, taking care of the bottom of Maslow, your food pantries, your homeless shelters, your unaccompanied youth initiatives. Great. We need to address that, and we need to layer on the education to go forward. When you get on your feet and you can take in more information, here's where we're going, here's what is needed in the future. Like, how do we deal with both? Because you're not going to be able to listen if you don't have clean socks. When I worked with the homeless in San Francisco, that was the number thing they wanted. I want clean socks, because it's a damp climate. And if your feet are clammy all the time, that affects your health and your ability to get through the day. If they have clean socks, then they would listen to me. Okay, well, we can do that. So the mental models is interesting, yes. And it is interesting to watch how people govern their lives. How do you know? You know through interacting with them. And that takes time. Unfortunately, in our middle class land, we love checklists and processes and metrics, and we do that. How many of your metrics and processes say spend time connecting with people? Because that's how you establish trust. And oftentimes it's like, do this, forms, go. Yes. But I will tell you, if you can connect with people, the rest of it will come easier. Okay, everybody needs a piece of paper and something to write with. Write down everything you think causes poverty in Wyoming or the United States. Make a list. And I'm going to whoosh us through quite a bit of this because I'm keeping an eye on the time. And I was going to do more breakout rooms, but you guys are engaging and participating pretty well like this. So I might do less breakout rooms because it takes so much time. And I know we want to get to the language part. Okay. So you had about a minute to write down everything you think causes poverty in the United States. Here's what you can boil it down to. 4 things. Individual behaviors, community conditions, exploitation, and policies. What I want you to do now on, this is in your workbook, page 14, but there's definitions up here. So individual behaviors, it's research based on the choices, behaviors, and circumstances of people in poverty. Community conditions, research on resources and human and social capital in the city or county. Exploitation is on the impact of exploitation on individuals and communities, and policies, social policies, economic systems at the organization on the local, state, national, and international levels. Go back to your list. If it's an individual behavior you wrote down, put a number 1. If it's a community condition, put a number 2. If it's exploitation, put a number 3. If it's political and economic structures, put a 4. Okay, where were the majority of your numbers?
Two.
2. Community conditions. Okay, same with Susan. Carol says also 2. 1. Common, yes.
2. 4.
2. 4. Good. Couple of you have 4. Nice. Yeah, they're all there. Think about what influences your answers. Is it who you're hanging out with? Is it where you live? What's your mental model? This is my favorite slide, mainly because it makes people cringe. The political right mainly thinks the causes of poverty are behaviors of the individual and lack of jobs. Well, if we just give them jobs, we'll be fine. The political left thinks that exploitation and racism are the root causes of poverty as well as policies that exist. Here's the thing, all 4 contribute to poverty. And as our administrations, even on a local level, flip back and forth, we are only ever addressing half of the issue at a time. All 4. Think about what you have influence. Where's your influence? And how do you help people understand or know this? What is your mental model? Where do you spend your energy? And where do you have the most influence? Because it's important that we remember all 4. Thoughts? How are you doing with this one? Talking politics. Oh no.
Yeah, this is a fascinating conundrum. I mean, I really want to be able to be open and say I don't have a bias here, but I clearly do. And my bias wants me to reject the opposite of the way I see things. You know, having been in, grown up in poverty, I think that the far left, well, to my screen, it's the far right slide, the government, and then the far left, which would be behavior, are the 2 biggest things in my mind. I think those are correct. Personal behaviors and the government, like this is the conservative viewpoint, right? The government providing the services helps people to not fight for their own need to get up and do
You're
things.
enabling them.
But I don't think that mindset is a universal truth. I think that folks who are living in poverty didn't always decide something that got them there. Sometimes other people made decisions for them that got them there. The government handouts, for the most part, they are not never ending. There is a time limit to most programs for you to receive help. So you don't get help forever. So none of those things are universal truths, but it feels, because of our upbringing and our community, it feels like we can pinpoint the things that are the problem, and the other people who want the opposite of what I want, their fixes are the problem. If that confusing statement makes any sense to anybody.
I think I followed it. I think it's good.
I think that's what's so complicated about the whole issue of poverty, is that everybody wants the same goal. Everybody has different ideas of how to get there, but sometimes the choices that either party makes when making policy negatively impacts the other one. So when we are talking about policy structure and providing jobs, we may be at the same time ignoring that exploitation or not understanding that everybody has the same equal opportunity. I recall a conversation I had with somebody who told me everybody has the same equal opportunity. All you have to do is work hard. And I said, well, that's very interesting, Mr. White Man from Casper, Wyoming, who has never experienced anything outside of Wyoming, to think that everybody does have equal opportunity. So I think so many times, whether you are right of the middle or left of the middle, we think we know what is the best way, but yet contradict the other side by creating policies or procedure or things that don't address the other. And this is why it's so complicated. How do you address all four equitably?
Right. And
I don't know that you can.
Isn't there a nugget of truth enough in this statement that anybody can? But I think the thing that those of us who think that way would don't always connect with is that the opportunities that we are talking about are really tangible, but sometimes the opportunity to think differently isn't provided, right? Or isn't the ability to say to yourself, I can achieve this kind of financial standing at some point in my life. Everyone can say that, and everyone can agree with that, and go, yeah, sure, okay, you can, right? And I think that is a universal truth. There's a way to do that. Yet, the ability to think in such a way that, and to be tenacious enough to knock on those doors, to look up those opportunities, to create whatever it is that you want to create or need to create in order to have that thing you say you want to have, that takes a special kind of person. Not every person is like that. And then we come back to the upbringing and how you were trained and what you were given and what you were told was possible. Yeah, the values that you were taught as a kid. And so it makes it really difficult to say, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, but if you've never thought that way, if you never realized that you
and
could,
never had an example in your life of how that works. Yeah.
If the only thing you were taught, yeah, sorry, Kyle.
So tagging on to kind of what Eric is saying, imagine that I use this example with my staff a lot. You have somebody who's drowning out in an ocean, and the primary thing that they can think about is trying to stay alive, to take the next breath. They can't focus on anything else. It's got to be that next breath. It isn't until that they're able to keep their head above water that they can even begin to think about, where's land and how can I swim there? And sometimes our job is to help them to at least get their head above water so they can look somewhere. But also imagine that you have a person who grew up knowing how to swim, and all of a sudden they discover themselves out in the middle of the ocean, they would be more likely, and they have the same opportunities to get to land, but the swimmer versus the person who maybe never learned how to swim, the swimmer might start swimming towards land as for the other person just continues to drown. Because we encounter lots of people who, yes, physically they're able to work. Yes, there's all of these other things that they could do, and we try to ponder, why aren't you? And why don't you have more of a desire to work? And why don't you do these things? And we kind of look, and we talk about that a lot in my staff, because they've all been there. And sometimes they have that bias of, I didn't get help. Why are you getting help? And why do you get these things when I didn't get these things? And why don't you just get out there and work because I worked? And so we sometimes have that because we have a lot in our staff who've been there and who've been in services and things like that. But we have to recognize that sometimes a person may not have the mental capacity, the emotional capacity. They may have this self-view or self-worth of themselves. I mean, in my community, our businesses are suffering because they cannot find quality workers who have a clue about what customer service is. So you have somebody who says, I cannot get work. And that's true because they've already gotten fired from every job that they might possibly be able to do in a smaller community. And they have family in the community, so it doesn't work just to say, well, you need to move now and try a whole nother new group of businesses that'll just keep firing you.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think your analogy is brilliant, that there's a real difference, but you drop two people in the same water and say, get to shore, and one of them knows how to swim because he grew up with swimmers, and the other one hasn't ever swum in that world before. Who's gonna drown? Right? It takes an outside force to cause the experienced swimmer to drown, right? Something has to happen to them for them to drown. But for the inexperienced swimmer, the one who doesn't know how, that same water provides the same opportunity in theory, but they don't have it. So you want to start a business, how do you even begin? What kind of expertise do you need to have to start a business? What kind of idea is going to take off? If you've never thought that way, you are literally dead on arrival. And it's very difficult to get a leg up. You need someone to mentor you, take you under their wing. You know, it's a great analogy.
Some of my thoughts eventually, because we got a lot we're working on right now, but is I think my community would benefit if we just gave customer service type training and the basics of, here's how to keep a job. Here's how to show up on time. Here's how not to get fired. Here's how to count money. Here's how to, here's how to be polite. There's so many of these basics that they can't get. And granted, some of it is, you know what? You need to stop showing up high. You need to, right? Some of these sorts of things. But I'm seeing, for some of it, it's not a matter of, oh, I need to get a better job. They just need to be able to keep a job and start there.
And in our small towns, which people have said Wyoming is a small town combined by a whole bunch of roads. Yes, because it's a small state. People talk. And so if your name has connotation in this community, how do you move to the next community? And sometimes there's some barriers that you were born into, and how do you work to overcome those? Yeah. There's excellent examples. I like the ocean.
I think we all know people who work very hard at getting assistance. They've got their list. They know who does what on what days. They know how frequently you can go. They know who gives out what type of food. And so some of them, they do have some of those organizational skills because that's what they learned from their parents. And like we say, sometimes you have to start with the children to break through it, but
and they're surviving.
You kind of mentioned that relational is we don't like to get into the mix of things a lot of times. We want to be able to provide this sort of thing, do it on your own. Here's the skill and here's the structure. But if we really want to help some people to transform their lives, we're going to have to walk that path with them, and that's a lot of hard work.
Yes. One of my phrases that I hear around the state is, well, they're just working the system. They're working the system. Well, I will tell you that all three groups work the system. And what Kyle said is true. Yes, I know how to survive, and I know which food bank to go on Thursday, and then which church to visit on Saturday. And I survive. You can't tell me that I didn't work the system, me, Melissa, white middle class, when my kids were little, and I put money into this IRA or that 401k because when they got ready to go to school, it would not be taxed. So I'm working the system. But look at how I'm celebrated. Like, well done you for managing your money and providing for your kids. Yay. You can't tell me that the wealthy don't work the system by enacting laws. And Bezos is in a lot of hot water because of all the tax breaks and whatever for making billions of dollars or whatever. And people are distrustful of that and like, what's going on? Marxism says those in power make rules to stay in power. It's also working the system. But if it's somebody from my own mental model, then I go, oh yeah, well done. Did you know about this too? And you share information. But somebody in a different mental model, you're like, what? Why are you doing that? Well, that's just crazy. Majority of the people in the US are middle class. We have the biggest numbers. Then you can play that out, lower middle class, middle class, upper middle class, but majority of the people are in that achievement, self-sustainability mode. We have the growing number of poor, true, and we have the adage of the 1%. Our businesses, our workplaces, our institutions operate from a mode of middle class, which means we get highly judgy of the other two groups. All the groups judge the other two, but by numbers, we have the most say. And we're like, oh no, you need to do it like we do. We have it right. Well, we have it right for us. But how do we breathe and work with people who are surviving? I will tell you, I think I told you yesterday, I work in community colleges, and the one in Colorado shut down 3 times in one semester due to bomb threats because, you know, bleh. And they moved everybody off campuses and voila. I will tell you that as an educator, I would much rather have kids from a poverty mental model in my classroom if there's an active shooter on campus. Because if I say hit the deck, they're going to be like, okay, what do you want, Mrs. Martin? But if I say that to my middle class kids, they're going to be like, what? You didn't even say please. I wonder what's going on. I'd lose them in a heartbeat. Like there's some real skills that come from being street smart and resilient that my middle class kids are lacking. And that's an overgeneralization, of course, but how do we connect with people? Let's meet them where they're at, coach them where we need them to be. You are very resilient and very good with people. Let's give you some customer service skills so that you can use those skills you already have in a workplace. That's a great example, Kyle. How do we meet people where they're at? Take the strengths. Everybody has strengths. Take their strengths and move them into how do we need you to work to be successful in a predominantly middle-class world. Okay, so we're going to do a breakout room. What I want you to do is, in your book, it talks about the constructs. So I don't want to debrief this fully in our full group, but I do want to give you time to spend. The constructs are very important. These are key points that underlie the Bridges Out of Poverty curriculum. So all 10 of these key points are listed on page 20. What I want you to do is I want you to go to page 19 of your workbook, and I want you to discuss question 1, and you may just have time for one of these. I'm going to shorten it up to 7 minutes in your breakout rooms, or question 2 under the constructs number 5. Both are on page 19. Work through that, and if you want to flip back to page 20 and kind of talk through those, but I do want to give you a chance because you're really good at applying this to your world. So I want you to go back and be able to have a chance to do that with people that you work with. My I don't know who and how our breakout rooms are looking, but that's okay. If you have a conversation then about those constructs in your world, then I'll give you 7 minutes. Take it away, Bridget.
Okay, so you should all be receiving an invitation to join the breakout room. Melissa and I will be circulating through the room, so if you have any questions, we'll be there to answer your questions. And again, you have 7 minutes.
And Bridget, if you can just put discussion points on page 19 and send that out to them, at least that will get them talking. Thank you. Susan, I'm loving your comments. Thank you. Oh, she left. She probably didn't hear me. And I've been trying to look at Dusty's picture. I love it.
That's pretty cool.
I want it to be a bulldog or a bull.
I think it's a bear. I don't know.
Well, yes, the bear mounted, but is the red a bear as well?
I think it's
Maybe
a rooster. I'm not sure.
Oh, a rooster. I see it. Okay, thank you. That's better. Nice.
Let's see, I'll get a link to the workbook here.
This will probably be the last breakout room.
Okay.
I had others planned, but I'm out of time to have them.
Okay.
Well, no, they'll do one more. They'll do the one at the end, the longer one at the end.
Okay. Looks like we have a few people who aren't in breakout rooms yet. So Don, can you unmute and tell me which county you're in again, please?
Okay, they have a matter of seconds and they'll be sucked back. How are you guys doing? Are you hanging in there all right? It's a long time to be in front of a computer like this. And we are mostly during the day, but we're back and forth and we're answering phones and we're up and down. So to be like engaged like this can be exhausting.
What is the time frame for today's session?
When
are we scheduled? You're going to?
Yeah,
okay.
this goes until noon, and then we'll take an 1.5-hour break for lunch, and then we'll come back and Carrie Stanley from 122. She's going to be sharing, along with a couple of other folks from her team. Ashley and Estella are going to share with us about WCDA and the WEHAP program. And then we'll take, I'm guessing probably a little less than 30-minute break. And then 3 p.m. is our annual meeting, our association meeting. I'd love everyone to be there for that. And we will be voting via the poll function here in Zoom for new board members, and I'm going to be sharing some updates on CSNOW and the programs that we're going to be doing this coming year. That's it.
Voila. Okay, I invite you to have conversations in your staff meetings about the Bridges construct. In your workbook, it has many discussion points, something I did not feel like we had enough time to talk through today. And it is agency specific or location specific. And so to spend time in a statewide group to say, what do you think? Well, then we get the conversations, well, in Campbell County, but then in Lincoln County, well, then in Black County. So this is a invitation for you to go back to this at a staff meeting, take time to talk through, cement the information for how it applies in your world. In the next 40-ish minutes to like half an hour, because I want to leave some time for Q&A and stuff at the end like we did yesterday, I want to whoop through these rest of these pieces. I know it's not going to be enough time to really dive into them, and that makes me sad, but we also know that we have limited time resources. So again, I will invite you, I'll give you my contact information. And if you want to reach out at any time, if you need more information or a way to facilitate a staff meeting on a smaller scale, then I'm definitely available and can help in that way if you would like. So those of you who have been through Bridges know about the hidden rules concept. This is what actually got me into the curriculum. I was working on my master's degree and I was talking about how food and communication are linked. If you want people to talk, provide food, yes. And I interviewed my maternal grandmother, my paternal grandmother had passed, and then they had all passed. Anyway, different sides of my family, and talked about how food was used to work through communication. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, maybe I did my master's on the wrong thing, because this, as a social scientist, this was fascinating to me on how people govern their lives. So I don't want to go through all of these. However, I do want to hit a few of them, which will back up a lot of what you've already been saying all morning. So yes, look at, here's our concept of inclusivity for people in poverty, self-governance, self-sufficiency, achievement for middle class, as well as exclusion or exclusivity for people in wealth. Can you see where this causes a disconnect in how you govern and interact with one another? Yes, because you're like, duh, but the other group is thinking the same thing. No, we've already talked about how money for people in poverty, you use it, you get it, you spend it. Hello, you solve issues that you've been dealing with for a long time, or immediate gratification. Yes, my kid has been wanting these cool tennis shoes for 2 years now. Now I have a tax income return that I can do this for them. And so how do I show love to my kiddo? I'm gonna buy them those cool shoes. Yeah, we're gonna worry about rent later, but right now, look, I can do this for them. Middle class spends a whole lot of time managing money. How many of you did the envelope concept or still do the envelope concept? Like, I have my envelope for entertainment, I have my envelope for rent, and I have my envelope for food, and they can't mix up, because if I dip out of my rent envelope to go to a movie that we don't do anymore, then, you know, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. So we spend a lot of time managing our money. With wealth, we conserve it, we live off the investments. So it's a much different attitude around money. With food, look at how these play out. So this is where I got all kinds of geeky with my theories. With poverty mentality, did you have enough? So my grandfather, I told you, construction worker, at one point he wanted to be a professional gambler. That worked a little bit, but not enough to, you know, support his family of 9. The 7 kids and the 2 of them. At one point, Grandma and Grandpa opened up a restaurant. Grandma was an amazing cook, and the restaurant was good, but I think they drank all their proceeds, so it flopped. And no judgment, every family has things, and theirs was alcohol to cope. So there was that came into play. I interviewed, my dad has passed away, the 6 remaining siblings I interviewed, and I said, okay, tell me what Grandma made that you liked. 5 of the 6. 5 of the remaining siblings, not Uncle John, because he's the youngest. Nobody likes Uncle John. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. But the other 5 individually, without listening to one another, said, oh, Grandma's ham and beans. And Grandma taught me how to make ham and beans. And I can make Grandma's ham and beans. I learned that you don't hurry beans. You do have to let them simmer all day long to get that nice, good broth. However, when I make them, I use ham flavor. I make ham and beans with actual ham. Grandma made ham flavored beans. Like, she would put the salt pork in, or the ham bone from the day before, or the bacon grease, or whatever. They were ham flavored beans, but whatever. But the kids all knew that's the day they got enough. That's the day they could get filled up, because Grandma would make a vat of ham and beans, and they knew they could eat as much as they wanted. That wasn't common. Aunt Sherry said, which was really interesting. So unpack this statement from Aunt Sherry. Oh, you know what I really liked? Not only was Grandma's ham and beans, but also when Grandpa let me lick the A1 sauce off of his T-bone steak. What, Aunt Sherry? Okay, so let's just stop. What did I learn about my family in that moment? One, Grandma's preparing different meals, ham and beans for the kids. I don't know that she ate. I think she drank through dinner, and then maybe she nibbled on something later. And Grandpa got a T-bone steak because he was working. And Grandpa chose a favorite child of the night, and you didn't get a bite of the steak, but you did get to lick the A1 sauce off the bone. So you are cool tonight. So there's all sorts of fun dynamics that go on in my family's household. Yay. Uncle John said, I didn't like Grandma's ham and beans. And then the rest of the family turned on him. You did too, you ate them. Well, what else was I gonna eat? There was nothing. So then they had this little, and then he said something very interesting. He said, I learned when I went to college that what I ordered told people if I grew up poor or not. And if I liked ham and beans, if I ordered them, people knew I grew up poor. But if I ordered pinto bean or black beans, then it was cool. Fried chicken, poor people food. Baked chicken, cool. Canned veggies, poor people food. Fresh veggies, cool. So he changed his palate intentionally to fit in with middle class. And the kids turned on him. They were like, what are you doing? You're too highfalutin. Uncle John married, very wealthy, and was married a long time, had 5 kids, did very well. His wife came from wealthy mentality, traveled the world, spoke Arabic, taught Arabic in different parts of the world, did great, got a divorce. Now he's an IT person. No, he's a Apple salesperson, you know, in the Apple stores. I think he sells Apple products, and has borrowed money from the kids, the other siblings, and they're kind of mad at him because he was too good for us, but now he needs us, and now we don't like that. So you look at how family dynamics play out. This started with food, but look at how there's so much more layered in there. With middle class, food is all about quality, and did you like it? Did you like it? How many of you know very loving middle class mothers that go to their 4-year-old and say, would you like chicken nuggets or pizza rolls tonight? What do you like? When I grew up, I was never given a choice because my dad grew up in generational poverty, and I was told, you eat everything that your mother puts in front of you. You do not have a choice. Because he remember, and he was 6'6". He remembers being hungry like a good portion of his life. So I wasn't allowed to not eat what my mother did not prepare for me. Did I raise my kids the same way? No. What do you want, honey? Do you want chicken nuggets or pizza rolls? What do you like? Starbucks has made $1 billion industry on this concept alone. Do you want half calf, no calf, decaf, full calf? What kind of calf you want? You want whole milk, soy milk, almond milk, half and half, cream, oat milk? I don't know all the milks. What do you like? Have you ever been to Starbucks and they're like, did you like it? And you're like, yeah. They like snatch it out of your hand and throw it away in the trash. I'll make you another one. And you're like, that was a $5 drink. What are you doing? That's secondary to, did you like it? Look at how the concept around food influences problem solving and understanding of the world. Very early on, middle class kids are taught to know what they want and speak up for it. Kids in poverty are taught to sit down and pay attention and don't rock the boat. Wealth mentality when it comes to food, it's really not sustainability at all. They have enough resources to survive physically. So that's why when you go to a really fancy restaurant, it's about presentation. You get the piece of meat that's this big. They put it on the plate and then they go, ding, it's dinner. And you're like, what is that? It's an hors d'oeuvre. That's not a piece of meat. That's a little hockey puck. What you got? I need a steak. Because it's not about food at all. It's about presentation and uniqueness. Okay, so take that into your environments. You have potlucks. And how does that set up an in-group or out-grouper, remember from yesterday, mentality? Because the person that is coming from wealth mentality is like, well, this doesn't look right. How is it not prepared on the plate for me? Plated. How is it plated and given to me? Middle class person is, oh, I think I like this, and I'll have a little of this. I like this. And the poverty person is like, this is a feast. They're loading up their plate. And they're eating, and then they're loading it up again. And how many of these hidden rules do people go, and we don't say anything, we're nice people, but look at how that sets up, do you fit or do you not? These hidden rules exist. They're not written down. They just are based on your mental model. If you keep going with this concept of hidden rules, look at how time, this is that tyranny of the moment. Decisions are made for the moment based on feelings or survival. Middle class, the future. How many of you sacrifice for tomorrow? I'm in higher ed. That's all that is. You will pay a lot of money, you will study your butt off, and you will gnash your teeth and cry during the process for the promise of a better life. But college can be crazy, and you're paying for that crazy. Why? Because we promise you a better life. If you get a college degree, all your problems will be solved. Now I have another rant about that. Well, I'll just tell you, I think our country has done a big disservice by saying college is the only way to succeed. And my welding student is far going to out-earn me. But look at how society tells me, oh, you teach at a college? Well done you. But they look at that welding student and go, what, you couldn't hack it in college? You had to be a welder? When that welder is going to double my income right out of the certification program. So I think we've done a huge disservice, that's my other little rant, on being so future oriented. And maybe in the game of life, the board game, when it says you choose to go into debt and go to college, or you choose to go right into a career, it's okay if you want to go right into a career.
You know, not to interrupt your train of thought, but I recently saw an interview with Mike Rowe, who does Dirty Jobs, and he was talking about many of the people who've been on the show, and he said probably a good 75 or 80% of the people that they had on Dirty Jobs were multimillionaires who started a business doing things that nobody else wanted to do, that were necessary. And so they make a killing, and they never talk about the money, but they literally are set and probably only work that hard on those shows to show people, to show Mike Rowe how to do the work. But normally it's other people who get paid to do that work. And it's just it's a very interesting point to realize that the whole emphasis on going to college is really about going to work for somebody else in somebody else's business. And that's kind of the mentality, was a job that would give you a retirement benefit and that you could do for 40 years is where that mentality came from.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that it's, again, like a lot of things, because I am that social scientist, it's a lot more complicated than just go to school or get a trade. Go to college or get a trade. Yeah. We forget to talk about it. That's a hidden rule. As you move through the rest of these, go back to my concept of food and how we're teaching our middle class to use their voice. Look at destiny. So this will come into language. This is huge, because if you've never taught that your actions are going to predict outcomes, things just happen then. I was working with a gentleman who was at Challenge Academy, is that what it's called? Outside of Guernsey, right? With troubled youth, kind of a boot camp type concept. And middle class aged counselor, mentality counselor really wanted to reach this kid and said, okay, I'm going to reach this kid. He needs to get his head on straight, and he needs to, suck it up and fly right, whatever. So he goes to the kid and he says, if you don't get your act together, you're going to go to jail. And the kid was like, yeah, that's only a matter of time. Right? My dad just got out of jail. I think my mom's headed to jail, and my uncle's been there my whole life. Like, that's just what we do. What is the habits of generations that have reinforced with this kid? Like, yeah, it's only a matter of time before I end up there. That's the examples that I was shown. With middle class, contradictory. We believe in choice. If you do something now, that's going to affect you in the future. Guess what? We're continually shocked when life gets in the way. We're like, but I didn't plan for that. Yeah, I know life is going to get in the way always. Guess what? It's going to be a pandemic. Woohoo, deal with that. I didn't plan for that. We were so caught off guard. With wealth, this concept of noblesse oblige is the inferred responsibility to give back. I have enough resources, I can give back. How many of your communities have foundations, institutions, buildings, named buildings around town because they had a family that had means that gave back in a way that preserved their family name? With, where is it? Time. Look at wealth is traditions and history are more important, most important. Decisions are made partially on the basis of tradition and quorum. It is not about the individual for wealthy families. It's about the family name. And in my judgy middle class, white middle class brain, I go, why doesn't she leave him? We know he cheats on her. Well, it's really not about her and her feelings. It's about protecting the family name. And so I can't leave because then that's going to taint the family name. And so I'm just going to be here. So less individuality in here than I would say middle class. Household dynamics tend to be matriarchal because they're the ones that have the kids and they're the ones that stick around with the kids. The dads come and go. And it can be, I made the mistake when I was working on the reservation for asking for the mom's signature, not the aunt's. Whoops. Matriarchal. Any female can sign for that kid. They all jump in and take care of. And that was very much my middle class bias and misunderstanding. With middle class, patriarchal, but we're in the equality state, so this doesn't matter here, right? Sorry, my little feminist, rant comes out a little bit. It's still very much a patriarchal society in middle class land. Breathe, sorry if I ruffled some feathers. And then with wealth, I love this. It doesn't matter, it's whoever has the money. And if it's Crazy Aunt Sue, we will do whatever Crazy Aunt Sue says because Crazy Aunt Sue has the money. Driving force is survival, relationships, entertainment. We already talked about that in the middle of those circles with middle class, work and achievement. And with wealth, financial, political, and social connections. Think about how your mental model is structured around this. Love what Kyle said earlier about how people move from poverty to middle class. What I find is that sometimes they can be the most judgmental to people that are still in poverty. Whatever I did it, you do it. It wasn't that hard, and I made it through. Here's what they're forgetting to understand. They didn't do it alone. And they might have had, they say with dysfunctional families, kids that move out of that dysfunction are kids that have been exposed to a different way of life and a different way of thinking. So if you move from here to here, it's because you've had role models, examples. Remember, education, employment, experience are what help people move. And so honor this in yourself. I'm not asking you to be somebody you're not, but breathe and recognize that you're on a different planet than somebody else. And how do you build the trust, understand where they're at, and coach them where you need them to be? When it comes to language, these hit home even more. So you have these registers. I'm not going to go through them in the interest of time, only to say that if you move more than 2 registers, you're a weirdo. So if you are at work and you're using intimate language, that's not allowed. If you're at work and you're using frozen language in your verbal communication, you're kind of strange. So more than 2 is going to set you up as different. Think back to how we raise our kids. In poverty mentality, 13 million words, so smaller vocabulary, 1 affirmation for every 2 prohibition or discount. Meaning, a good, loving mother in poverty mentality is going to correct their kid a lot to keep them safe. Yeah, the street. Put that down. Don't go over there. What did I tell you? Get your eyes off that chocolate. So it is very much about keeping the kids safe, which is a lot of corrective behavior. With middle class, 26 million words doubles. So their understanding of the world is bigger because when you have a bigger vocabulary, then you have a bigger framework in which to deal with. And it flips. 2 positives for every 1 discount. How do you feel about that? That was a good choice. Oh yeah, you need to clean your room. Tell me what you want for dinner. What do you want? More than doubles again. 45 million words. 6 positives for every 1 prohibition. No comments about millennials and getting a trophy for everything. Even they didn't like that. But it is very much, my child is amazing. I was talking to a teacher who worked for a gifted and talented school, and she said, when the kid got in trouble, it was my fault, but when the kid did well, it was their fault. Like there was some sort of disconnect on, oh no, my child's an angel and can do whatever they want. If you don't have the ability to plan, if you're believing in fate and your language is as such, this is huge. If an individual can't plan, they have a difficulty predicting. They can't predict, then cause and effect is non-existent. If they can't identify cause and effect, then what's the deal with consequences? It's just fate. They can't identify consequences, then why control impulses? And if you can't control impulses, you have an inclination towards criminal behavior. Language is huge. How do you empower people to think ahead and take responsibility for their own actions rather than just is? We could spend 4 hours on this slide alone, or not. But this is big. The tools I like is how do we help people take ownership for their own thoughts and think ahead? I use this one quite a bit to teach, direct teach. Clear is kind. If you choose this and you have chosen this. Well, I can't make it to my WIC appointment because of my kids or my mom needs or whatever. Okay, well, if you choose not to make it to your WIC appointment, then you're choosing not to have WIC benefits next month. Can you survive without your WIC benefits next month? No. Okay, then what do we need to do? Why can't you make it to your appointment? Well, I don't have money for the bus. Okay, did you know WIC has the services? Well, we'll put you in a taxi and bring you here. I didn't know that. Can you make it this afternoon? Well, I still need to watch my kids, whatever. Okay, well, if you choose not, it's on you. If you choose not to come, then this is what you have chosen. So it's not about enabling or helping or, solving their problems for them. It's about empowering them to think through. And these are skills they might not have grown up with, especially if they lived it, well, it's just fate. Sometimes services fall apart. No, they fall apart because you didn't show up. Huh, who knew? Yeah, we told you, but you were in such a survival mode, you weren't ready to listen. The other one I like and use quite a bit with my students is this plan backwards. And I'll have students of poverty in my classroom. I have homeless students in my classroom. They say it's cheaper for me to join a gym where I can get a bottle of water and an apple and live out of my car than it is to pay rent and tuition. So I will pay for tuition, I'll join a gym, and then my main concern is not get rousted out of my car so I can go to school. I get internet at the coffee shop or the school or whatever, I can do that, but yes. Anyway, so my goal is to help them think through this. And I say, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. Okay, that doesn't magically happen overnight. What do you need? Well, I need to take some classes. Okay, what does that involve? Well, I need to pay for the classes. Okay, what does that involve? Well, I probably need a job. Okay, and financial aid. Okay, what are you going to do about financial aid? Oh, I probably should go talk to somebody about that. Yes. Because that planning doesn't exist. They just think, what have they been told their whole lives? Go to school, get a job. There's so many different nuances. And in the college world, we forget to translate what that means. And we speak another language. Get your FAFSA, fill out your financial aid, get your prereqs, and go down to your advisor and get your courses. What? If they do not have parents that have translated or modeled that for them, that's a bunch of gobbledygook. And so how do we translate that to their world? The other slide I like with language is, listen to yourselves. This is one of my favorites. And I use this quite a bit, even with my credit students, because a child voice is defensive, victimized, emotional, whining, losing attitude, strong negative nonverbals. I don't wanna. Meh. Child voice. How many times, don't name names, is a small state. How many times have you heard a coworker use a child voice? Here's what happens. If you use a child voice, You are inviting somebody to be your parent. A parent voice is authoritative, directive, judgmental, evaluative, win-lose mentality, demanding, punitive, sometimes threatening. Sit down and be good. If you're going to whine about missing days off, then I'm going to treat you like a child. And I'm going to tell you next time, no, because I can, because I'm the parent. The reverse is also true. If you use a parent voice, well, guess you don't get your WIC benefits. You made your bed, you lie in it. Then you are inviting people to behave like children. And we buck authority. And so if you're going to be the authority, then we're going to be like, we're going to throw a fit, and we're going to behave like children. And we're smart, rational people. But there's something about it that brings it out of us. The best case scenario is adult. When you use the adult voice, non-judgmental, free of negative nonverbals, factual, often in question format, attitude of win-win, you are inviting somebody to be an adult with you. Here's the glitch. Some people aren't ready to be adults. Be patient and persistent. Put the ball back in their court. Treat them with adult respect and work with them. Walk with them through the process. Ask lots of questions. And how did that work out for you? What do you think you need to do next time? Be with them. Give them the skills they may not have received growing up. It's huge. And it comes in our verbal and nonverbal communication. And we talked yesterday when Jim asked the question, but it's COVID and we can't even see him. Yes, we have some insurmountable challenges. Yes. Breathe, we'll get there. And don't get in your own way. How many times do you have the little micro expression where somebody walks into their office and in your office and they're really smelly? And you go, okay, hi, right? Do you think they pick up on it? Yes, of course they do. First you fix your heart, then your words and actions will come. What do you want for this person? What do you want today? What do you want long term? I buzzed through that very, very fast. Thank you for hanging in there. Here's how we're going to end today. Last module. So you remember this slide? Yes, from the very beginning. Here's a definition of the resources. Yes, financial is one of them, but it's the only one. It's also emotional. Can you keep your emotions in check? And I get called to do a lot more workshops in the workplace on emotional intelligence. That's a skill. You don't want somebody going postal. That's an old reference now. I don't think they've gone postal in a long time. But you know what I'm thinking, right? Somebody's losing their cool in unproductive ways and harmful ways. Mental, do you have the smarts to make it through? Spiritual is not about church membership. It's about, do I believe I have a purpose? Do I have guidance? Do I have hope? And when Wyoming trades #1 for suicide with Montana and Alaska every year, our state is lacking hope. And you think it's our angsty teens? It is not. It is our middle-aged men that are committing suicide. They are lacking spiritual resource. And they don't think they can reach out for help. They're like, oh, I got issues. Well, suck it up, buttercup. Oh, I can't. Okay, I know another solution. It's heartbreaking. Physical, can you get around? Do you need a double stroller? Is it icy? What's the wind doing? Can you hop on a bus? Can you hop on your own car? Can you get around? And I will tell you that our state is unkind if you don't have your own wheels. Lots of barriers. Support system. Do you have friends, family, backup resources available in times of need? These are external resources. Do you have relationships and role models, which are frequent access to adults who are appropriate, nurturing, and who do not engage in destructive behavior? And then do you have a knowledge of the hidden rules? So here's what I want you to do. Go to page, oh, I didn't write the page number on there. I don't know if you have this diagram or not. What I want you to do, and we don't have as much time as I had wanted to because we got to talking about other things, which is also good. So if you look, I want you to take somebody you know and we're not going to do breakout rooms. I thought, Bridget, we are, but I think we're running out of time. So I want you to think of somebody that's living in generational poverty, somebody you work with, interact with, somebody you can help. Draw your hand on a piece of paper, and that might be in the book. I don't know if the hand is or if it's just another wow. I had it. I don't see it. So if you draw your hand, I like this because I take this wherever I go. Ta-da! This is my cell phone. Very middle class. I get it. So when I'm helping, like a student or a client or a customer, this reminds me that everybody has strengths. So do they have financial? Well, that's an important resource, but it's the least of us. Let's do it with Sandy here. So let's pretend Sandy, if I'm going to help Sandy, she's recently separated. Well, look, she's making 120 grand a year. She's okay. She has the financial resources. Okay. Mental, she's got some smarts. She's working on her PhD. Let's give her a 4. On a scale of 1 to 5, she's doing good. Emotional, well, this is where we're having some issues, right? Depression, because of she's recently separated, binge drinking, angry outbursts. She has pretty good sense of humor at all. She's pretty empathetic, understanding, but whew. Spiritual, think of a pointer finger. Where are you going? What's your purpose? What's your hope? What's your purpose? So that's good. I know, I think you already figured out why they use the middle finger to represent emotional. I don't know. I haven't talked to Sandy about what her purpose is now. Physical, so if you think of your hand, how it helps you grasp things, physical movement, right? With Sandy, she's in pretty good health. However, she's been binge drinking. She can't sleep. She's under eating. She stopped exercise. She's smoking again. She's ignoring her preventative health care. So while she's in good health, these are some problematic things that are going to get in the way. Her support system is her bridging. So how does that bridge to help her? She has some colleagues, some therapists, and professors. So yeah, I'd rank that pretty good. Bonding, think of a handshake. So how is she connecting with others? And she has some influential friends wrapped around her. She does hidden rules, adaptable, flexible. So that's the wrist, and she can really work through that. If you were going to help Sandy, what do you think? Where do we need to help her?
Emotional,
Mm-hmm.
physical.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She's doing okay. She's hanging in there. But this is a slippery slope over here. And it seems like she's pretty middle class because she's working through school and work and whatever. So I would tap into her need to achieve and say, if you continue this, you're probably going to affect your ability to finish your PhD. Your short-term behavior is affecting your long-term results. And that may work with Sandy. You need to increase your conversations with your therapist because they need to give you some better coping mechanisms. And when we go out, we're not going to the bar, we're going to the gym. And so how can you help Sandy? Take like 3 minutes, think about somebody that you interact with, generational poverty, rank them. And I'll leave this slide up. I'll put this one up actually. On a 1 to 5, where are they? On mental, where are they? Okay, I'll stop talking so you can do. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to think through that. And I apologize I didn't leave as much time. This really is a valuable tool. And what it's helped me do is meet people where they're at, coach them where I need them to be. They may not have. I had one student in my class, what a sweetheart. She had very little money. She wasn't the smartest kid in the class, but dang, did she have a lot of drive. She was a CNA. She wanted to be a teacher. We did a lot of backwards planning, and she had a huge support system and role models. We use that. She's a single mother. They were taking care of her kid. She was doing it. She can get there. But we had to really think through what that meant and what that means going forward. And she's still in school. She has a lot of drive and she's going places. But if I were to look at her and go, meh, I don't know, and given up, she might have picked up on that. And who makes a difference? It's people you trust and people you interact with. As we wrap this up, I want you to hold on to this diagram to go forward, because it is a good way to help even illustrate other people's strengths to them. Ooh, I have to clear those annotations. There we go. So the real voyage of discovery comes not in seeking new landscapes, but having new eyes. It is this awareness, and it is helping others have awareness of where you're going. If you have come to help me, you can go home again. Like, I'm not here to just be helped. And I know that sometimes people believe that and think through that. And maybe I do need help of just, I'm starving to death, I need food. However, put your heart in the right place. If you see my struggles as a part of your own survival, then we can work together. No significant learning comes without a significant relationship. I'm not going to trust you if you're just filling out forms and throwing me on my way. How do you connect with people? The human relationship is a sledgehammer that obliterates every societal difference. It is establishing trust, and it is connecting with others. We talked about mainly working with individuals within your institution. You saw how communities and policies can hinder that process or help. How do you examine your institution and yourself for use this work to improve outcomes going forward? It's a powerful tool, but it only works if you want it to, and if you put your time and money, or your time and your effort into it. Breathe. It's not going to happen overnight, but don't give up and then get out of your own way. I left 3 minutes for questions. And I know I rushed the last part. Oh, let me give you this. And Bridget will probably put it in the chat, and you'll get this PowerPoint deck. So if you want to keep track of my email address, and that's my personal phone number, snag it. If you have anything that you want to talk through, or need any support or help with anything else, then please feel free to reach out to me. Did you get it in the chat, Bridget?
Awesome. If she hasn't yet, it will be there for sure. I promise you that. Melissa, that was fantastic. I mean, I really am blown away. It was really, really good. And I can tell you right now that I would love to see if we can book you for a full 2-day thing and walk through this again sometime in the next year. I think it'd be really valuable for everybody. What questions or thoughts or comments do we have before, Melissa, before we let everyone go to lunch? Awesome. Melissa, really, really grateful for everything. It was truly, truly a great session for sure. We are going to break for lunch. You have 90 minutes until we begin the next session. I have a couple of personal things I got to handle, so I will be back just slightly after the beginning of the second session, close to 2 o'clock. So Bridget will begin our second session for me, but I will be back in time, and we will have our State Association meeting after. The next session, I want to encourage you to get as many of your staff people involved in that next session as possible. And I don't even care if they registered for the conference. And here's why. The Wyoming Community Development Authority, WCDA, is the lead organization on dispersing the Wyoming Emergency Housing Assistance Program funding, which is the WEHAP funding that Carrie and her team is going to walk through. 122 has been working very closely with the governor and with WCDA on getting this stuff out and kind of pioneering some of that work. And so they're going to walk us through that process. There are a lot of people who need to have help for rental assistance and things like that, and they need to be able to get through the application process, which is what they're going to walk us through. So a lot of questions that you probably have had in the past are going to get answered in the next session. So please have as many people there as possible, and also stay in for our state association meeting coming up soon. Have a fantastic lunch. You are awesome. Remember everything that Melissa told you. Don't let any of it get out of your head. And when we send out the evaluations, give her good marks, because I think I will definitely give her good marks. Okay. Have a great one, guys.
One thing I'd add just really quickly, we've had a lot of great resources in the chat. You can actually save the chat as a text file. There'll be 3 little dots next to the top of the chat box where it says to everyone, 3 little dots. Click on that, and there's an option to save chat, and you can download it with all the links and everything. Thank you.
Okay, great.